Douluo, leave everything on autopilot and become a god. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, The Titan 039's Optimism. The promotion of the random cloak hammer method made Hu Jiu have the urge to challenge point a random cloak that does not need to be charged. Each hammer has a power of 10,000 jins. This kind of power, even a pure power soul master of the same level does not have. Challenge Zao Wauki. As soon as this thought came up, Hu Jiu's mood suddenly became hot, and his hands were itchy. Haha, swell. Keep a low profile. If you really beat the teacher, your face won't look good. Rubbing his face, Hu Jiu gave up the idea. He doesn't need to fight to improve his strength, so if he has time, he might as well use it to cultivate his soul skills from this day on. Hu Jiu put his main energy on the soul skill of King Kong's indestructible body. Seeing that the number of years of the first spirit ability is increasing day by day, the effect of spirit power is getting stronger and stronger. In order to avoid the possibility that the physical fitness cannot keep up with the growth rate of the soul power, it is better to arrange it in advance. At present, it has been a long time since King Kong has become the 9th level, and the next step is to at least wait until the full level. They came to the dedicated training ground for the Shrek 9 monsters. This training ground was specially allocated to them by the academy as genius monsters. They have this qualification in the training ground. Tang San and others were training. Oscar, Ning Rangrong, Meng Yan, the 3 weakest, were running around the playground. Originally, as a power attack type spirit master, Meng Yan's physique would not be on the same level as Ning Rangrong and Oscar's 2 auxiliary type spirit masters, but her martial spirit is a weapon spirit, and compared with the beast martial spirit, the blessing of the weapon spirit on physical fitness is too much. This problem was not only a dream, but Tang San was actually the same. It was just because he had taken to immortal grasses, and he had also undergone ice and fire eyes to forge his body, so his current physique was temporarily comparable to Daemubei's. But if he continued, his physical fitness would be surpassed by Daemubei sooner or later. Phew. Brother Ninth, help me, I need your help. With the arrival of Hu Jiu, Ning Rangrong, who had run out of strength before, immediately lit up, exerted his last remaining strength, and ran over with difficulty. Haha, it's so rare. I didn't expect our Rangrong to practice so hard. Hu Jiu laughed and joked, but a holy light appeared in his hand. To restore the ginseng. Ning Rangrong rolled his eyes, took the ginseng and ceremoniously, and ate it. You can't do it if you don't work hard. Both Zuking and Fatty have made breakthroughs, and even Zhao and still are about to make breakthroughs. I'm the only one left behind. Do you think I can stop working hard? In about 20 days, Zhu Zuking had already broken through to level 46, Mahanjan had also broken through level 45, and the others were almost on the verge of breaking through. With their cultivation speed, they can break through level 1 in about a month. And Hu Jiu, although the highest level, needs more soul power each time, but because of the reason of cultivating Hu Ginseng and hanging up the panel, his cultivation speed is even faster. In just 20 days, he made another breakthrough and became a 62 food type soul emperor. This kind of cultivation speed, not to mention others, even Hu Jiu himself was shocked. For others, the higher the level of soul power, the slower the speed of cultivation. But when it came to Hu Jiu, it was the other way around. The more he cultivated to the end, the faster his level increased. Then, you can cultivate slowly, I'm going to cultivate too. Hu Jiu patted Ning Rangrong's head and walked towards Zhu Zuking and Zhao Wu cheerfully. At this time, Zhao Wu and Zhu Zuking were fighting fiercely. Both of them are agile attack type soul masters, and their speed is superb. When they move their hands, there are after images left by them everywhere. The eyes are almost so bad that they can't see where their bodies are at all. Zhao Wu Zuking, come and have a rest. I have something to tell you. Hu Jiu shouted to them. What's wrong? Zhao Wu and Zhu Zuking stopped, seeing Hu Jiu Xiao Wu even ran over. Come on, eat the root of Shengguan Hu Ginseng first. Ginseng is a fusion of carrot and ginseng, which is crisp and delicious, and thirst quenching. When Zhu Zuking walked over with the catwalk swaying, Hu Jiu also handed over a root of Hushan. After Zhu Zuking took it, he raised his eyebrows and revealed a questioning look. My practice has come to an end, and it's time to move on to the next stage, Hu Jiu said. The next stage? Have you stopped practicing the chaotic cloak hammering technique? Xiao Wu glanced at Hu Jiu in surprise, and then asked in surprise, well, in the next step, I'm going to practice Vajra in destruction. This needs your help, King. Kang is not bad, to put it bluntly. This is the soul skill that was beaten. The worse the beating, the better the cultivation effect. When Hu Jiu wanted to come, instead of going to Zhao Walqi to practice, it would be better to ask Xiao Wu and Zhu Zuking to help. As the saying goes, it is not tiring to work together with men and women. Carrying out their own cultivation did not delay them. How to help? Zhu Zuking asked succinctly. After becoming a woman, Zhu Zuking's temperament has changed a bit. The aggressive temperament dissipated, but the domineering temperament became prominent instead. This is more apparent when in bed. Many times, he is actually more active than Hu Jiu, with a domineering aura, a pure face, and a charming expression. Every time, Hu Jiu enjoys the ultimate happiness. Don't break the body. When I practice Vajra, you come to beat me. By the way, I will also look for your flaws, so that we will not delay the cultivation time. Hu Jiu said what he had thought of for a long time. Of course, Xiao Wu and Zhu Zuking would not have any objections. Even if they were told to let go of their cultivation and help Hu Jiu, they would still be willing. What's more, Hu Jiu also gave the best of both worlds on this day. Hu Jiu was beaten. However, he was willing to beat him this time. After all, if they didn't let them fight, they would have to look for Zhao Walqi. How to choose between two beautiful women and a bad guy. There is no doubt about the result. One day passed, and in the early morning of the next day, Taelong found Hu Jiu with joy on his face. 9th. Brother, good news. It's done. I brought you what you asked for. Taelong said excitedly. Oh, not bad. Hu Jiu patted his shoulder in appreciation. Taking the wrought iron hand soul skill that Taelong sent over, Hu Jiu glanced at it. It was very good. Although the soul skill mainly trains the hands, it belongs to the type of expanding the surface with points. Strengthen the hands, and also expand the whole body with the hands. This is a body forging soul skill whose effect is no worse than King Kong's indestructible body. I'm curious, how did you convince your stubborn grandfather? Hu Jiu asked. He was really curious. In his impression, Taelong's grandfather, Taitan, was a stubborn old man who accepted death, and he was a calf guard, so he hated it. Haha, the old man said that he is very optimistic about you. If it is someone else's idea of hitting the iron hand of our family, the old man will definitely break his leg, but you are different, brother 9. The grandfather said that it is very promising for me to follow you. This soul skill is his greeting gift. Chapter 250 to CATWOMAN and -039, S second ring. Okay, I've accepted the gift from your family. Don't worry, I won't treat you badly. Raising the wrought iron hand in his hand, Hu Jiu readily promised. 9th. Brother, then Taelong rubbed his hands together. Hey, this is Hu Ginseng with super double cultivation effect. The cultivation effect is increased 10 times. As long as I'm in the academy, I will provide you with one every day. Hu Jiu folded his hands and made a Hu Ginseng on the spot. 10 times the effect of cultivation? Taelong was ecstatic and even stuttered. It's only 10 times the effect of cultivation. What a trifle. Hu Jiu waved his hand lightly, his expression very beeping. Okay, since it's alright, you can go now. What is bridge demolition? This is, after getting the desired soul skill, Hu Jiu started chasing people. 9th. Brother, my grandfather said that, if he has time, he would like to invite you to my house as a guest. Taelong stood up and prepared to leave with Hu Shen in his arms. he suddenly thought of his grandfather's instructions and hurriedly turned around and said to Hu Jiu, "It's fine to be a guest, you know me, I'm not interested at all, and it's about to be the Continent Elite Spirit Master competition. I'm going to retreat and practice for a while, you should hurry up to practice. I heard that the academy is going to choose a few substitutes players, I hope you will be one of them when the time comes." Hu Jiu has no interest in the importance of Titan, but he is just a soul Douluo. Because of the recent level increase, he can make 10 times more cultivating ginseng, and Xiao Wu and others can't bear it, so they have to cheap Xiao Waoqi and Fu Rant and Liu Erlang point. A few days ago, Xiao Wuji had officially broken through the 79th level, and if he broke one level, he would be a contrap, so now he doesn't need Titan's attention. 9th. Brother, rest assured, except for you, no one in Shrek is of a higher level than me, Taelong said confidently with his fist clenched. In other words, Taelong also has the confidence to say this. At present, he is a 39th level battle soul, and he is a soul sect at 1 level. In the entire academy, the cultivation talent is better, and the highest cultivation base is only 35. Far from him. Waving his hand, Hu Jiu ignored Taelong and began to look through it with his wrought iron hand. Seeing this, Taelong silently exited the room with Hushin with 10 times the effect of cultivation. In just half an hour, the on-hook panel successfully recorded the wrought iron hand into the on-hook position and automatically understood the cultivation method of the wrought iron hand for him every moment. Finally, there is no time to hang up, feel good. Hu Jiu was in a particularly good mood when he saw the soul skills on the hang-up seat. Stretching and standing up. Just when he was about to go to the training ground to practice the Vajra body, outside the door, Humelia came in with a cup of tea, shaking her little butt. Behind her, a fluffy tail loomed. "Master, please drink tea." Hu Jiu raised her eyes and glanced at Catwoman, who was hesitant to speak. Her mind moved, and her perception ability was concentrated on her. Humelia's scalp was numb and her face was flushed by the look in his eyes. "Master, what are you doing?" It turned out to be a breakthrough. No wonder he is so diligent. Hu Jiu looked strange. Is this the benefit of getting the first month in the near water? Because she was usually served well by Catwoman, Hu Jiu did not give her less ginseng, whether it was evolutionary ginseng or cultivation. She did not give less ginseng. As a result, in just a few months, she was taken its level 20. "Master, what are you talking about? How can Melia be courteous?" Humelia winked like silk, put her hand on Hu Jiu's shoulder, and said reluctantly, "I don't know if this action is seduction or what. I have been with Hu Jiu for a long time, and I know that he has no heir, otherwise Humir would not be so aggressive. Okay, don't mess with me, you kitten. You are still too young. Wait a few more years, and see how I deal with you." Hu Jiu scratched Humir's little buttocks angrily. This little goblin would seduce him at every turn. If it were someone else, she would have eaten her long ago. "Master, Mir is not too young, and I will have a lot of tricks. Maid, you brought this on your own." Hu Jiu cursed secretly, stretched out his hand, and the bedroom door slammed shut instantly, in a blink of an eye. Half a day has passed. In the afternoon, Hu Jiu brought Humelia to the Sunset Forest Point. Now that Humelia has been promoted to level 20, Hu Jiu will not be stingy, and will take her to hunt for the second spirit ring immediately. Humira's first spirit ring was obtained from the raccoon cat. And the second spirit ring, Hu Jiu thought about it, and finally chose a wind speed cat that was about 700 years old. There are still a lot of soul beast resources in Sunset's forest. With Hu Jiu's perception ability, he can quickly find a suitable target. The 700-year-old wind speed cat couldn't turn the flower in front of Hu Jiu at all, and the soul power came out and quickly bound it in place. Unable to move. Humir winked and took out the dagger and started hunting skillfully. Humelia has understood the principle of the strong feeding the weak since she was a child, so she has no mercy. Soon, a dark yellow spirit ring appeared on Feng Su Mao, floating in the air. "Quickly, absorb it," Hu Jiu said with a smile. "Okay." Humir put away the dagger, sat in the middle of the stream, and began to use her own soul power. To pull the spirit ring point after successfully absorbing the spirit ring, Humeya officially became a 21st level agility attack spirit master. The second spirit ring skill is called Swift Wind, which can increase the speed by 30%. Because Humeya is a mutant cat spirit, it becomes a permanent passive effect in her body. Sir, I'm getting faster. I'm so fast. Just. After absorbing the spirit ring, Humeya couldn't control the sudden increase in speed. She moved her footsteps a little, and her body jumped out so fast that she couldn't stop. Hu Jiu's figure moved and instantly appeared in front of her, holding her to observe carefully. After absorbing the second spirit ring, probably because the martial spirit has evolved to a certain extent, Humeya has fewer cat-like characteristics. The sharp nails softened, the pointed cat ears on her head became more rounded. And even more miraculously, her cat tail disappeared. Where's your tail? Hu Jiu scratched curiously, but it was empty. Tail. Humeya tilted her head and looked behind her. Looking behind her, under the short skirt, a fluffy tail stuck its head out and landed on Hu Jiu's hand point. Just when Hu Jiu was about to hold it tightly, the cat's tail shrank back and disappeared. Master, I can control the spirit. At this moment, Humeya's eyes became rosy. This scene was what she was thinking about in her dreams. Although it can only control one tail, it is also a huge improvement point. In fact, Humeya has always hated her own martial spirit, and because of it, she was bought by the auction since she was a child and was forced to become a valuable item. But now, she saw the hope of becoming a normal person. Master. Humeya hugged Hu Jiu tightly, stroking her little hand on his chest, and gradually moved down. Hu Jiu, it's wild here. Is it really going to be so exciting? Chapter 253 Body Forging. After becoming a 21st level soul master, Humeya could finally tuck her tail and wear some tight pants that she had never worn before. Back at the academy, Tang San and the others had already completed today's exercise, and only Hu King was still running on the training ground. Seeing her difficult steps, her back soaked with sweat, and her insistence on gritting her teeth, Hu Jiu suddenly felt distressed. King, don't run away, come and rest first. Hu Jiu called to her. This girl, in terms of cultivation, still works so hard. Okay. Hu King ran towards him silently. Hu Jiu handed a holy light Hu ginseng over and asked lovingly, why are you working so hard? With your current level, I'm afraid that you have already surpassed your elder sister. Well, I just passed it. I heard from Boss Day that she was at level 45 not long ago, and I have already passed her in level. Hu King took the Hushin lightly and ate it, but I can't relax. I want to appear in front of her with absolute strength. In fact, Hu King didn't say a word, and that was her engagement with Daimyo. In private, Daimyo had already discussed with her that their marriage contract would definitely be annulled, but it was very difficult. Without absolute strength, they couldn't resist the family. After all, the marriage between Daimyo's family and Hu King's family was a tradition, and it wasn't that simple for them to break it. But whether it was Hu King or Daimyo, neither of them told Hu Jiu, you're too tired to train like this. In the Shrek team, my talent is the worst. If I want to not be left behind, I have to work harder. Hu King smiled and comforted Hu Jiu. Don't worry, I can persevere, even if it is better than this. I persevered in the tougher training. I really can't help you. Looking at the stubborn big cat, Hu Jiu shook his head helplessly. Forget it, stop running. This kind of training has the worst effect. I have a way to make you fit. It's faster, but you have to think about how to repay me. Hu King rolled her eyes at Hu Jiu. How do you want me to repay? Well, let's talk about it at night. Come with me now. My training method is a little private. Go to my room. Hu Jiu rubbed Hu King's head like a cat's head. Go to your room. Are you training for real or fake training? Hu King looked suspicious, but did not refuse. It's really training. Who do you think I am? In broad daylight. Hu Jiu looked at Hu King gloomily. Could it be that in her heart, she was an old snackerskin? Zhu King pursed his lips and snickered. A blush flashed across his face, but he was embarrassed to say that he had done it many times during the day. By the way, where did Xiao Wu and the others go? I didn't see anyone. She went shopping with Rangrong, and they are still together. Zhu King replied. As for Boss Day and the others, you know where they are going. Having said this, Zhu King bit his lip and asked in a low voice, when are you going to tell Xiao Wu about our affairs? The days when she was carrying Xiao Wu and Hu Jiu together made her feel very insecure. Don't worry, I'll take care of Xiao Wu's side, but she'll have to wait until she reaches level 70. Wait. Hu Jiu reached out and held Zhu King's hand, pinching her belly. It is good. Nodding silently, Zhu King suddenly raised his eyebrows and smiled, and his cold eyes came alive at this moment. How are you going to help me train? Zhu King asked, looking up at the man in front of him. Don't worry, take off your clothes first, otherwise it will be inconvenient. Hu Jiu watched the big cat's mouth slightly open in surprise with great interest. Zhu King, does this take off your clothes? Said you didn't mean to do bad things. Forget it, let me take it off for you. Hu Jiu stepped forward and skillfully helped her take off the leather armor, leaving only one piece of underwear on her body, touching his chin. Hu Jiu was considering whether to take off his underwear as well. There is still too much fabric, which will affect the training later. Don't look. Zhu King covered his chest with both hands. His whole body was hot. The skin turns an alluring pink. Okay, that's almost it. Get ready. If you can't stand it, you can tell me. Hu Jiu generously admired the big cat's moving posture and finally patted her peach-like buttocks. Handle addiction. Call. One blue and one red light flooded the entire room under Hu Jiu's control. At this moment, Zhu King could only feel extreme cold and extreme heat appearing at the same time, alternately circulating throughout his body. Accidentally attacked by the two layers of ice and fire, Zhu King's body trembled, almost unable to stand. Hu Jiu hurriedly supported her and explained, hold on, this is my ice and fire domain. There are two temperatures of extreme cold and extreme heat to temper your body, which will improve your physical fitness more efficiently than running. And you don't have to be so tired, but the taste is a little harder. I can. Zhu King gritted his teeth, but he didn't say anything anymore. The voice just now was really misleading. However, judging from her trembling body, it could be seen that she was trying her best to endure. It's alright, just call out if you want. I've sealed the room with my soul power. No one will hear you even if you scream. Hu Jiu grinned wickedly, with an expression of anticipation on his face. Under the scorching of the ice and fire, the feeling was extremely painful, cold and hot, itchy, and numb. In order to divert Zhu King's attention, Hu Jiu also took great pains. At this time, Zhu King could no longer hear what Hu Jiu was talking about, and his whole body was paralyzed on Hu Jiu's body, and a shameful cry came out of his mouth. The taste of experiencing body quenching in the ice and fire domain for the first time is really unpleasant. At the beginning, Hu Jiu, a big man, also suffered hardships in the field of ice and fire, and strength was never easy. Opening the ice and fire domain for a long time also consumes a lot of Hu Jiu. The key is to control it carefully and always feel the limit of Zhu King's tolerance. It is also because of his good strength, coupled with his strong mental strength, that otherwise, he might not be able to endure Zhu King's forging. This time, Zhu King insisted on forging for half an hour, but in the end he couldn't bear it, and fainted. Call. Hu Jiu let out a long sigh, and wiped off a handful of sweat. He was too tired. Helping Zhu King to forge his body was even more tiring than working with her. Hey, it's not too much to help you with so much effort, to unlock a few new poses. Carrying the fainted Zhu King onto his bed, Hu Jiu also rolled onto the bed, hugged the big white cat beside him, and fell asleep beautifully. Xiao Jiu, open the door. I've brought you something good. In a daze, Hu Jiu heard a familiar voice calling him. Chapter 254 Rabbits also eat grass at the edge of the nest. A. Habitually sensed the surrounding movement. Hu Jiu stretching action suddenly froze. Outside the door, Xiao Wu was propping up her little leather boots, her hands behind her back, and her head was tilted to look here. As if wondering if he was in at. Suffered. Hu Jiu was in a cold sweat, and there was a big white and tender cat beside her. How could she escape such a crisis? Give me one of the teleportation ginseng. At a critical moment, a lazy voice sounded in his ears, and a sip of aroma spit in his ears, itching. Hu Jiu's eyes lit up, and he regained consciousness instantly. Yes, I can teleport. No one can catch my gangster. He simply took out a teleportation ginseng, and stuffed it into Zhu's Yuking's hand. When he received a ruthless stare, Hu Jiu picked up the quilt, and threw it a few times, to dissipate the smell left by the big cat in the quilt. Opening the door, Xiao Wu, who was about to leave, stood outside the door. Suck it, Xiao Wu vigilantly glanced around the room, sniffed, and jumped down on him. How come there is a fragrance in your house? This smell is so familiar. How could it be? Did you smell it wrong? My room only smells of mature men. If you smell it again, is that the smell? Hu Jiu smiled, but he was frightened in his heart, for fear that there was something he didn't deal with clean. HMPH, you stink to death, so I don't smell it. Xiao Wu slapped her hands in disgust, and said with a smile, you're the only one who did I buy you something back. Oh, is there my share? Is it delicious? Hu Jiu said curiously, rubbing his chin. Yes, I bought you your favorite roast duck, and I bought a skirt today, and small boots, and, for a while, there was only Xiao Wu's chirping voice in the room. Hu Jiu smiled and listened to Xiao Wu's voice. Her expression softened. On this day, Hu Jiu and others were training separately, and Flender came over with 2 people. Everyone is familiar with these 2 people. The man is Tai Long and the woman is Jiang Hu. They are both elite class students. Who are they without me introducing them? Flender asked with a smile on his face. No, I don't need an introduction from the dean. Mahanjan's eyes fell on Jiang Hu. Jiang Zhu is 19 years old this year, a few years older than the Shrek 9 monsters. He is about 1.65 meters tall, and has long purple hair that is very characteristic. Looking soft, although not as eye-catching as Zhu's Yuking, Xiao Wu, and Ning Rangrong. She was definitely a beauty. The most attractive place. It was her body that was already ripe, and the round place was definitely not flat. I hadn't paid much attention to it before, but when I took a closer look today, Mahanjan suddenly felt a little itchy. It turns out that there are such high quality women in our college. Damn, why didn't we find it before? Well, I'm going to arrange the 2 of them into your team's backup team. In 3 months, the Continental Elite Spirit Master competition will be held. The process of the competition is very intense, and in the future battles, some casualties are inevitable. In order to keep the team's fighting ability well, you should cooperate during this time, and go to the competition together. Flender said, President, this is unnecessary. With our fighting ability, how could there be casualties? You are too underestimating us. With the sudden addition of 2 team members, Dame Bei was not very happy. For nothing else, the key is that there is a great god Hu Jiu in the team. If people join their team, should the 9th brother's cultivation of Hu Ginseng be shared with them, in order not to embarrass Hu Jiu? Dame Bei's first thought was to refuse. This is my arrangement. Okay, that's it. Xiao Jiu, you arrange for them. Flender waved his hand, and ignored Dame Bei. He knew that among this group of people, Hu Jiu was the one who made the decision. Okay. Hu Jiu didn't think too much about Dame Bei, and nodded indifferently. It was just right to have 2 substitutes, just 2 more free thugs after Flender left. Everyone's eyes focused on Taelong and Jiang Zhu. Hey, 9th brother, 3rd brother, boss day, are you hungry? I'll treat you to dinner. Taelong said in a dog-legged manner, often following Tang San. He was very familiar with the situation of the Shrek 9 monsters, and knew who was the boss here. Although we know each other, we have to introduce them formally, don't you think, Taelong? Mahanjan's eyes lit up, and he said thiefly, brother, fatty, I don't need it anymore. Taelong asked helplessly point beside him. Jiang Zhu had a gentle smile on his face, observing them with great interest point in his eyes. This group of people are half-grown children. Although he has heard a lot of legends about them in the academy, he has not really come into contact with them much point. The Shrek 9 monsters have always been trained as monsters. Even if they came to Skydao City, they were different from the people, who were originally from Landbur Academy. They had a lot of autonomy, and they wanted to take theoretical courses even more. If you don't want to go, you won't go. In the actual combat class, Zhao Waoqi and others open a small stove alone. Compared with them, Jiang Zhu and the others are all raised by their stepmothers. Hey, fatty, are you doing the same thing again? The rabbits don't eat the grass on the edge of the nest. You dare to harass this young lady, and see how I deal with you. Dame Bei cast a glance at Ma Hongjian. You can see his dirty mind, boss. Day, that's wrong. Rabbits also eat grass at the edge of the nest, because grass at the edge of the nest is the best. I didn't eat it, because I couldn't bear to eat it, so I had to save it until the end. Xiao Wu explained seriously. Whether or not the rabbit eats the grass at the edge of the nest, she has the most say. Hu Jiu looked up at Xiao Wu. Why did he feel that Xiao Wu's words meant something else? No. Did she find something? Let's get to know me. My name is Jiangsu, Martial Soul Scepter, a 35th level healing device Soul Venerable. Jiangsu covered her mouth with a smile, and then introduced generously. Then, let me introduce myself. My name is Taelong Martial Spirit Gorilla, 39th level Battle Spirit Venerable. In the end, before Taelong finished his introduction, everyone's eyes were focused on Jiang Zhu, and then they looked at Hu Jiu and Oscar. They were also auxiliary spirit masters, and they were in charge of treatment. What did Dean Flender think? What are you looking at? Welcome. Hu Jiu smiled and slapped her hands. It seems that I can really cheer you on in the back. You are also a healing spirit master? Jiang Zhu asked curiously. Almost. Boys and girls, let's introduce ourselves. Hu Jiu stood up and looked at Dame Bei and the others. Hu Jiu, Wuhan Hushan, 62 food type Soul Emperor. Xiao Wu, Martial Soul Soft Bone Rabbit, 55 level agility attack type Soul King. Dame Bei, Martial Soul White Tiger, 53rd level assault type Soul King. Tang San, Martial Soul Blue Silver Grass, 48th level control system Soul Sect. Zhu Zuking, a Martial Soul Ghost Cat, a 46th level agility attack type Soul Sect. Ma Hongjian, Martial Soul Phoenix, 45th level assault type Battle Soul Sect. Oscar, Martial Soul Sausage, level 44 food type auxiliary Soul Sect. Ning Rangrong, Martial Spirit 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda, 44th level auxiliary Spirit Sect. Meng Yaran, Martial Soul Dragon Staff, 44th level Storm type Battle Soul Sect. Chapter 255 Winged Demon Right Leg Bone. 62. Jiang Zhu didn't hear the introduction of the others, only Hu Jiu's spirit power level kept reverberating in her mind. How could it be 62? This is the Soul Emperor. How old is Hu Jiu? With such a cultivation speed, titled Douluo is not a dream. The future can be expected. At this moment, Ryoshi Jiangsu had a peaceful mind and was unmoved by foreign objects. This would also cause confusion in her mind, and she even thought of the names of her and Hu Jiu's future children. Old. Hu Jiu. Are you really the 62 Soul Emperor? Jiang Zhu's face was flushed red, her eyes were full of brilliance, and she wanted to jump on him immediately. Hu Jiu's name is what you can call. Remember, you will be called Jiu Gen in the future. Do you hear me? Taelong glared at Jiangsu. How could he be so ignorant? As long as he made Jiu Gen happy, his fingers a little leak can make you useless. If he was a woman, he would have promised him long ago. Jiu, brother. Jiangsu became obedient in an instant, and she called out again. As for the fact that Hu Jiu was a few years younger than her, she had selectively forgotten it. Cough. Okay, I've been stunned. Little San, they will be handed over to you, and the others will continue to train. Hu Jiu touched her nose and spread her hands to Xiao Wu, expressing her innocence. Humph. Xiao Wu's eyes were sharp, She gave Hu Jiu a fierce shave, and then her body got closer, with a hint of a declaration of sovereignty. In the next period of time, everyone did not change, because of the addition of Tailong and Jiangsu. Everyone is hurrying to cultivate, wanting to improve before the continent elite spirit master competition point with sufficient training. Everyone's strength has steadily improved, and they are getting closer and closer to the goals they set themselves on this day. Mahanjan ran up to Hu Jiu like a dog, and told him good news. 9th. Brother, good news. The auction will open again tomorrow. Hu Jiu's reaction was flat. Tomorrow is the end of the month. Isn't it normal for the auction to start? No, I have inside information. It is said that there will be soul bones auctioned in this auction. How about this? Is this good news? Mahanjan said triumphantly. Spirit bone. Are you sure this news is true? Hu Jiu's eyes lit up. If it was a soul bone, it would be really good news. Of course, what I got was first-hand information. Mahanjan patted his chest and assured. Okay, pony, you actually have this ability. Not bad. Hu Jiu patted Mahanjan's shoulder and praised. Hey, what a trivial idea. Mahanjan laughed directly. Is there any detailed information? How old is the spirit bone? What part? What is the spirit skill? Hu Jiu couldn't see Fatty's stinky appearance, and instantly a series of questions came up. This, I haven't had time to ask. The fat man scratched his head naively, indicating that he didn't know either. Hu Jiu glanced at him and kicked lightly. Then why don't you go and find out? Hey, Ma. Hanjan looked at Hu Jiu embarrassedly. 9th brother, please give me some changes to Hu Ginseng. I've run out. Fuck, your mother is really talented. That's how you got the news? No need to think about it. Hu Jiu instantly knew where the dead fat man got the first-hand information. Hey, isn't this mutual benefit? Those girls in the auction are really pitiful. They need help from a loving person like me, and they can get a lot of news, so why not do it? Fatty laughed slyly. Fuck off. In the end, the fat man happily hugged the change cushion and went to inquire about the news in the evening. Fatty hurried back and brought back the detailed information about the spirit bones. However, what he brought back was not good news. That is a right leg spirit bone. The spirit bone is only 3,000 years old, and the spirit ability is the power of the wind, which can control the power of the wind point. The power of the wind may sound very powerful, but the actual effect is far from satisfactory. The power of the wind can only slightly reduce the body weight off the ground. It is not bad for beeping, and the practical effect is about 0. Seems to be missed. Hu Jiu's brows slackened. The effect of his soul skills almost didn't matter. He could hang up anyway. For him, the weakness of this soul bone is good, because only in this way can it not be auctioned at a high price, which is just cheap for him. However, Hu Jiu still underestimated the allure of a soul bone. Spirit bones. No matter how bad the effect is, there are countless people who want them. After all, they are spirit bones. For rich people, being good is the most important thing. The power of riding the wind, walking with the wind. This is a weapon for pretending to be beat. Others walk on their feet, but with a spirit bone they can get off the ground. It doesn't matter if the speed is slower. The key is to improve the force. Just like Douluo at the beginning. Others walk honestly, but he walks with his hands on his back and floats. How can he be so unrestrained? When he got to the auction house, Hu Jiu's ears moved, and the information he got was very unfavorable to him. Because today most people are coming for this soul bone. Hu Jiu suddenly felt a little guilty. He only had more than 7 million gold soul coins in his hand, which was nothing compared to those big bosses. Even Zubeng, an unloved prince, has a net worth of tens of millions. It seems that it is a bit difficult to get the soul bone. However, it's not impossible. Hu Jiu looked at the Shrek 9 monsters who were pulled by him. His eyes swept across their faces one by one, and his eyes stayed on Ning Rang Grang. Ning Rang Grang felt as if her body had been electrocuted, and then she saw Hu Jiu's naked gaze. 9th brother, don't mess around. It's not acceptable here. Ning Rang Grang folded his arms and showed a vigilant look on his face. As soon as the ambiguous words were uttered, everyone's eyes were instantly gathered. Rang Grang, be honest with me. Hu Jiu frowned. This girl is becoming more and more open to herself. Who made you look at me like this? Ning Rong raised her lips and said with a smile, "Hey." Hu Jiu patted her forehead. Then she couldn't do anything about it. "Forget it. I'll talk about it later." Came to the auction. Waited for a long time. The auction officially started today. The soul bone is the highlight of the auction, so it will be almost the end. And some precious things have also been auctioned ahead except for Hu Jiu. Everyone else started with some gadgets, and it was not a waste of time. Dear VIPs, the next auction item is the highlight of today. Maybe some people have already received the news. I will give you a strong introduction here, as the next lot rolls out on the auction floor. The auctioneer begins his exciting speech. This is a very rare spirit bone. Its owner is Douluo. Although it is only 3,000 years old, its spirit skills are amazing. The auctioneer introduced various information about the spirit bones in detail, which was similar to what Hu Jiu knew. Therefore, the starting price of this Fengmo right leg bone is 1 million gold soul coins, and each increase shall not be less than 1,000 gold soul coins. Now, the auction starts. As soon as the words fell, the whole auction room was boiling, and the price was rising, and it rose to a very high level after a while. Chapter 256 Soul bone in hand. 1 million gold soul coins. 2 million. 2 million. Is there any higher? The auctioneer shouted excitedly. Even if the age of the spirit bone is very low, the effect is not strong. But there are still many people who buy it in a blink of an eye. The bidding price was shouted at more than 7 million, and the price was still rising. But at this point, there are not many people who are capable of bidding, and there are only a few people who are bound to win the soul bone. But because they are all wearing masks, everyone does not know their specific identities under the auction stage. Hu Jiu touched his chin and did not participate in a single bid. Boss always bid at the end. Zio. Jiu. Take a quick shot. Take a quick shot. Wait for the soul bone to be taken away by someone else. Before Hu Jiu could reply, Zio would quickly shove a purple stored value card over silently. Another small hand stretched out, which was also a stored value card. Looking back, Zhu King was quietly winking at him. A. Is this a soft meal? So fragrant. In such a short period of time, the auction price for this soul bone of Feng Emo's right leg has reached more than 8 million yuan. 9 million. Hu Jiu shot decisively. This soul bone, he was going to fix it. 9 million. This VIP bid 9 million. If there is no higher price, this rare soul bone is his. The auctioneer shouted loudly. Under the stage, a figure in a black robe and a mask on his face froze slightly. Just now, she had already defeated the last competitor. She thought the overall situation was settled, but she unexpectedly killed Cheng Yaojin at the last moment. This made her turn her head and take a careful look at Hu Jiu. It's a pity that Hu Jiu is a cautious person. After entering the auction, he had already put on his mask. Even if many people wondered who he was, no one would recognize him. 10 million. After thinking for a while, the black-robed figure said faintly. Her voice is nice and neutral. It should be a disguise, and it is impossible to tell whether it is a man or a woman. 10 million. 10 million. 10 million once. 10 million twice. Is there any higher price? The auctioneer looked at Hu Jiu, waiting for his increase with exaggerated body language. 10 million and 1,000. Hu Jiu tapped the bid button. It's a bit difficult to deal with, even after eating soft rice. What should I do? Hu Jiu looked at Ning Rong. This little rich woman. Among them, the richest one belongs to her, the little princess of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, the next heir to the sect master, let alone 10 million. She can get even 10 million. So, do you want to continue eating a soft meal? The rogue behavior of only adding 1,000 gold soul coins made the black-robed man silent for a while, and then slowly entered a number 11 million. Not to be outdone, Hu Jiu increased the price by 1,000 gold soul coins again. Ning Rong looked at Hu Jiu with a smile, and handed over a multicolored prepaid card. 9th. Brother, come on, you can use the money in it as you like. Haha, thank you Rong. You are really my little fairy. Hu Jiu took the stored value card without saying anything polite, and accepted it with a smile. 11,001,000. May I ask if there are more expensive ones? 111,001,000. 111,001,000 two times. Hu Jiu's price made the auctioneer speechless. He was obviously rich, but the bidding was so stingy. Could it be that the rich are just stingy? On the other side, the man in black stood up and left without saying a word. Point on the other hand, in the direction of the exit, it happened to pass by Hu Jiu. Humph. The man in black robe deliberately stopped in front of Hu Jiu, leaving an angry snort. Haha, brother ninth, this is a bitch. Mahanjan exclaimed in surprise. Death. The figure of the man in black robe paused, and a huge momentum pressed towards Mahanjan. Point. That momentum was so huge that it almost pushed the dead fat man to the ground. Point. Hu Jiu stood up and faced the man in black robe, easily blocking her momentum. Friend, this brother of mine is a little shy. I'm sorry, I'll take him to apologize to you. Hu Jiu said peacefully. Fatty also owes his mouth a bit, which can offend people, and Hu Jiu also looks at him with admiration. Soul Emperor. The man in black robe looked at Hu Jiu in surprise, and even ignored Mahanjan who had offended her. Yeah. Hu Jiu nodded calmly. However, it is only a mere soul emperor, so there is nothing surprising. Can I know your name? The black robed man still used a neutral voice. What? Do you want to talk? Damu Bear appeared beside Hu Jiu at some point. Oh, if you don't want to, then forget it. The man in black robe shook his head and took a deep look at the 9 figures standing up at the same time. Hearing the voice, he was not very old. Before the staff of the auction house arrived, the man in black robe turned and left. Point. After what happened just now, everyone seemed to be no longer interested in this soul bone. In the end, no one had bid with Hu Jiu, and he had 1,100,000 gold soul coins to be auctioned. Point. In this way, the color stored value card that Ning Rang gave was no longer needed, and Hu Jiu gave it back to her. Fat man, be honest with me. Sooner or later, you kid will be ruined with a broken mouth. Hu Jiu said angrily. Ninth. Brother, I didn't mean to. Mahanjan said aggrieved. Point. If you want to blame it, blame that person for being mysterious, wearing a black robe, and even his voice has been processed. Point. At the same time, Hu Jiu is also guessing who this person is. Everyone is curious, but his omnipotent perception ability has failed in this person. It seems that she has a baby who specializes in resisting perception ability. Point. However, despite this, Hu Jiu still intercepted an aura from her body. If he met this person outside, he would definitely recognize it. Point. After photographing the spirit bone, Hu Jiu didn't want to stay any longer and took Tang San and the others to pay for Feng Emo's right leg bone. Point. No nonsense. After confirming that this was the spirit bone he bought, Hu Jiu slapped it on his right leg and absorbed it directly. Point. The spirit bone in his hand was as if it had fallen into the water, and it easily merged into Hu Jiu's right leg. Point. In an instant, Hu Jiu only felt a lightness from the top of his right leg, as if he was in the clouds, and his whole body became lighter. Even the soul power on his body has grown a bit with the blessing of the soul bone, but unfortunately, this soul power is only a drop in the bucket for him, and the improvement is not big. Point. But in terms of physical fitness, this spirit bone has given him a lot of help. The power of the wind. Hu Jiu stretched out his hands and felt the flow of the wind. Point. Reaching out a hand, a breeze blows in. Point. As soon as his mind moved, this breeze was blessed by him under his feet, and a sense of lightness filled the whole body, and it felt like it was flying. Point. This is not an illusion. His body is really off the ground, although only a little bit off the ground. It seems that this soul bone is not useless. Hu Jiu thought thoughtfully. Point. At the very least, he can control the power of the wind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257. The person who appeared unexpectedly. Make a lot of money. Hu Jiu thought in surprise. Point. Feng Emo's right leg bone gave him the power of wind. Although this power is very weak, he can hang up and become stronger sooner or later. The only problem now is that the hang-up slots are full and there is nothing left. He floated slowly around Tang San and the others and greeted everyone's envious eyes. Can this spirit bone only float you? Can it increase the speed? Or even higher? Tang San asked Hu Jiu. Don't ask. Ask is nothing. Or 3,000-year-old soul bone is not bad if it can float. Tang San patted his forehead, feeling a little annoyed. He felt that Hu Jiu bought a tasteless one. However, the weak point of the ability is the weakness. A soul bone can improve the human body a lot. Whether it is physical fitness or cultivation aptitude, it will be strengthened. Not bad to say. It's just that the additional abilities are not that useful. Of course, this was the reason why he didn't know that Hu Jiu's spirit bone could hang up. Jiu, stop playing. Let's go eat. I'm hungry. Xiao Wu grabbed Hu Jiu, who was floating and playing, and said pitifully while rubbing her stomach, "Okay, then let's go. I'll treat you. Day boss will settle the bill." A piece of soul bone not only ate the soft rice of Xiao Wu and Zhu's Yuking, but also ran out of money, and the future will be difficult. There's no problem with paying the bill, but it seems like I'm entertaining guests. Damu Bei readily agreed. He also knew that, after buying the spirit bones, Hu Jiu was not rich. Let's go eat the big family. Mahanjan patted his chubby belly and decided to eat a little more chubby. Just as everyone was happily preparing to leave, the door of the reception room was smashed open by a huge force. A tall and thin figure appeared in front of everyone. Before they could see who this person was, a monstrous aura emanated from him, overwhelming the crowd to the point where they almost couldn't breathe. Hu Jiu dodged to block in front of everyone. Behind him, Damu Bei, Tang San, and Mahanjan each stepped forward, resisting the pressure together. Who owns the soul bone? I want it. The man said domineeringly. Yo, who can be so domineering? It turns out to be the shameless master Poison Douluo. After all, you are also our Shrek Academy's nominal advisor, right? Are you sure you want to rob me? Sarcastically. That's right. The person here is Douluo. It turned out to be you. At this time, the smoke cleared, and Douluo also saw them clearly. Old monster, what are you doing? Tang San came to Hu Jiu, pulled his sleeve, gave him a calm look, then came to Douluo and asked with a smile, "Little monster, didn't you say that my family Yan'an still needs a spirit bone in order not to be disturbed by toxins? I have been looking for a spirit bone for several months, and I just got the news today that there is a spirit bone here. At auction, back then, the detoxification method Tang San gave was the spirit bone. With his unique secret recipe, all the toxins were absorbed into the spirit bones. This way, the body would not be disturbed by the toxins. Your Majesty, I can't help it, you are so unruly." At this moment, a weak voice sounded behind Douluo, which seemed to be blocking, but in fact it was just pretending. Joke. This person in front of him is a fearful Poison Douluo. Who would dare to stop him? That's why you broke in? Tang San didn't know what to say at this time, but he made a fool of Hu Jiu. But you are late. The spirit bones have been absorbed. Who absorbed the soul bone? Douluo was so angry that even the gray hair behind him stood up. I absorbed it. Old guy, I advise you to speak well. Don't think that you are a title Douluo. It's amazing. Hu Jiu said with a sullen face. Title Douluo is amazing. Douluo snorted coldly and stretched out his palm towards Hu Jiu. He has endured this kid for a long time. Poison Douluo is also the one you dare to provoke. Although Douluo simply opened his palm, in Hu Jiu's eyes, that palm was a huge palm, pressing towards him with infinite pressure. What? Hu Jiu did not show weakness. The BTO hammer appeared in his hand, and the chaotic cloak hammer method boldly greeted him with violent power. Boom. The 10,000-pound hammer was easily resisted by Douluo, and Hu Jiu involuntarily took a few steps back. Fortunately, this hammer is not without harvest. At least it resisted Douluo's palm. Soul Emperor. Douluo looked at Hu Jiu in surprise, his face full of disbelief. How long has it been? This guy has crossed a big realm again. What a fucking monster. For a moment, Douluo became vigilant in his heart, and at this moment, a murderous intent arose. The speed of this kid's cultivation is really terrifying. If he grows up, old guy, do you believe me or not? I will go to the Wuhan temple immediately, and let them send someone to hunt you down. Hu Jiu's perception ability is so strong. The moment Douluo raised his murderous intention, he instantly felt a strong threat, and immediately sullenly threatened. He bought a soul bone in a good way, but when he encountered this mess, speaking of anger, he was even more angry than Douluo. To be honest, at this moment, he really had the intention to go to the spirit hall. No matter how powerful you are, Douluo, if you don't say anything else, just based on his current level, you can definitely get the treatment like a holy son when you go to the spirit hall. If he puts forward the conditions to kill Douluo, it is really possible that this will happen. After all, Douluo was originally on the side of the Heaven Dao Empire, and was originally the enemy of the spirit hall. Douluo himself knew this, so he lived in seclusion, fearing that Wuhan temple would trouble him. Douluo made no secret of his killing intent. Did he really dare not kill? Okay, old monster, calm down a little bit. And Jiu, you too, what are you doing to mess with this old guy? Tang San stood between the two, struggling to block Douluo's killing intent. Little monster, go away. For the sake of detoxifying me and Yanayan, I won't embarrass you. This kid won't give me an explanation today. This old man will never give up. Seeing Tang San firmly standing in front of him, bearing his murderous aura alone, Douluo's heart softened, and he put away some momentum. He didn't dare to hurt Tang San. Douluo was someone he couldn't afford to offend. Very good. As expected of the famous poison Douluo, he is domineering. I will give you a day. If you don't give me an explanation for this matter, you can wait for the spirit hall to hunt you down. After saying this, Hu Jiu put her hand on Xiao Wu's shoulder, and her body disappeared instantly. At a critical moment, the little white hand that had always been white reached out and tightly pulled Hu Jiu's other hand. At this moment, Hu Jiu's face changed greatly, but it was too late. He only had time to change the spatial coordinates to the nearest location. Chapter 258. Douluo regrets. Old monster, this is troublesome. Xiao Jiu has a bad temper. Why do you say you have nothing to mess with him? This is good. Set up an enemy for yourself for nothing. If you really go to Wuhan as he said, Diane, just wait to die. With his talent, maybe he will be a titled Douluo in a few years, and the key is that he is still a food type soul master, so I don't need to talk about the role of food type wars. Tang San looked at Douluo with a wry smile, and a complaint arose in his heart. No wonder you, Douluo, are withdrawn, and everyone keeps him at a distance. No one really likes this kind of domineering character. Then, what do you want me to do? Who told him that he doesn't know how to respect his elders? No matter how I say it, this old man is still a titled Douluo, so he doesn't give any face. Douluo felt a little regretful. This guy's different from others. I don't know what to think. A food type soul master actually used a teleportation soul skill to come out. You're embarrassed to say, if it weren't for your arrogant attitude, how could things have come to this stage? Admit it yourself. The only way now is to let Xiao Jiu calm down and prepare for a big hemorrhage. Tang San said angrily. If it weren't for him taking Douluo as a friend, he would have given up on this shit. Whoever he loves, he doesn't want to affect his relationship with Hu Jiu because of Douluo's relationship. Impossible. How can this old man be so dignifiedly titled Douluo? How could he apologize to a small thing? Douluo shook his head and refused without thinking. What a poison Douluo. You don't need Brother 9 to go to the spirit hall. I'll go home now. Grandpa Kyugu and Grandpa Jian will go down the mountain to preside over justice. Dare to provoke Brother 9. Old ghost, you are finished, I said. Ning. Rang Rang waved her arms angrily. She hadn't reacted to the confrontation between Hu Jiu and Douluo just now. It was not until Hu Jiu left with Xiao Wu and Zhu Zuking that she realized that Jiu was bullied, not only by him, but by them. These people were bullied. Damu Bay, Mahanjan and the others also had sullen faces. Shrek's 9 monsters were all prosperous and all suffered, and they couldn't bear this grievance. Rangrang is right. Isn't he a titled Douluo? What kind of prestige? I'll go home too. Ask grandparents to call the shots. Old guy, you are fine. My grandparents are the famous dragons and snakes of the world. Presumably you should listen, I said it. At this time, Meng still took a step forward and stood beside Ning Rangrong, at the same time putting pressure on Dugubo. Little Sun, isn't your father Haoshan Douluo? Don't you just watch brother Jiu being bullied like this? Damu Bei looked at Tang San with a sullen face. They knew how Hu Jiu treated them. 10 times the cultivation of ginseng, something that money can't buy, but they eat every day. How can such a great kindness be forgotten? Okay, old monster, it looks like I'm going home to find my father. Think about it for yourself. Tang San spread his hands, helpless. It's all said and done. If he doesn't express his opinion, the brothers will not be able to do it in the future. Dugubo's face was extremely ugly, and the unparalleled dragon and snake were fine. Even if their martial spirits merged, they could be compared to titled Douluo, but he was not a vegetarian, so it was a big deal. But Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo are different. They are both titled powerhouses with a spirit power level of more than 95, while he is only 92. The two of them, whoever comes out can take care of himself. You must know that when you reach the titled Douluo realm, the gap between each level is very large, not to mention the 95th level or above. Even if he is one level higher than him, he can't beat him. Not to mention Haoshan Douluo, this is someone he can never afford to offend. It's hard to ride a tiger. He didn't doubt the truth of Ning Rangrang's words at all. As far as he knew, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School had officially announced that Ning Rangrang was the next sect master's heir arrive. I didn't expect that this kid would have so many people willing to stand up for him. Miscalculation. Dugubo's face was complicated. Even Tang San, his long-term friend, was willing to stand by Hu Jiu's side, and he hit him hard. Hey, tell me, how do you want me to compensate? With a sigh, Dugubo lowered his head, and his face was no longer arrogant. He is not alone. He has a granddaughter, and he does not dare to be self-willed. With that kid's character, if he really had a grudge against him, his granddaughter would be in danger. Just figure it out. Let's go. Let's go to the academy to find out. See if brother Ninth is there. If not, it's useless even if you want to compensate. Tang San also sighed. He had known why it was so, and who wouldn't provoke him. Well, don't mess with the person you can't mess with the most. It's so dangerous. Zuking, why are you in Shrek Academy? Hu Jiu wiped away the cold sweat and almost couldn't come back. Fortunately, he had sufficient soul power, and he reacted in time. Although the teleportation soul skill has been upgraded, it is possible to teleport with people, but this also depends on the consumption. Bringing one more person requires a geometric increase in the consumption of soul power. Together, Zhu Zuking held Hu Jiu's clothes. Her fingers turned white, and her face was full of persistence. She didn't want to be separated from Hu Jiu. Based on what she knew about Hu Jiu, if she didn't catch up, maybe he would really go to the spirit hall, and she didn't want to separate from Hu Jiu. Don't worry, I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to scare him and get some benefits. By the way, Hu Jiu was stunned for a moment, suppressed the throbbing in his heart, and explained to her Zhu Zuking didn't speak, and he didn't know if he believed Hu Jiu's explanation. Zhao, Jiu, Zuking, you. Zhao Wu pointed at them with a complicated expression. Zhao, Wu, I. Hu Jiu hesitated for a while, then gritted his teeth, ready to confess. Zhao, Wu, don't blame him. It's me who's sorry for you falling in love with someone you shouldn't love. Zhu Zuking interrupted Hu Jiu's words and stood in front of Zhao Wu with a look of guilt. That's right, she stole it first, but she doesn't regret it. So, you really like Zhao Jiu? Zhao Wu said in surprise, but this reaction was unexpected. Yes, he changed my destiny. I don't know when I started liking it. It seems like I liked it from the beginning. Zhu Zuking said calmly. Since this is the case, then you have to work hard. If Xiao Jiu agrees, I will not object. Xiao Wu showed a smile, as if she didn't think anything was wrong. Xiao Wu, you. Not to mention ZHU's Yuking, even Hu Jiu was shocked. What happened? When did Xiao Wu become so talkative? Really, I don't mind. I can't control such a good person as Xiao Jiu by myself. It just so happens that we are good sisters. Let's control him together in the future. Xiao Wu smiled, but deep down, very low self-esteem. After all, she is not human. Xiao Jiu is so kind to her. How can she be so selfish? Xiao Jiu, I think you like Zuking for a long time. After all, she has such a good figure. Hu Jiu wanted to refute, but she couldn't say it. After all, Zuking's figure really had nothing to say. It should be big, and it should be warped. Just thinking about it makes her heart hot. Xiao Wu, thank you. ZHU Zuking looked at Xiao Wu gratefully. She always knew that Xiao Wu's position in Hu Jiu's heart was a replaceable point. This can be seen from the fact that he only brought Xiao Wu, but not her. Hu Jiu didn't know what ZHU Zuking was thinking. If he knew, he would definitely scream for injustice. Taking Xiao Wu away was just because of her status as a soul beast, and wanted to arrange her first. After all, he was really planning to go to the spirit hall just now. As for not taking ZHU's Yuking, it was because this matter had nothing to do with her, and Douluo would not even think about dealing with her. Chapter 259. Seeing Xiao Wu and ZHU's Yuking whispering together, and leaving him aside, Hu Jiu's mind was full of question marks. In the end, he attributed this to the reason why Xiao Wu was not a human being and was different from human thinking. As for Zuking, it's better to say, with that girl's decisive and stubborn character, she must have been prepared for this. Maybe she was just jealous of him. The problem of the two women has come to an end for the time being, and the next thing to consider is the problem of Douluo. After thinking about it, Hu Jiu called the two women and walked to Flender's office. After such a long time, he also calmed down, but he was just a Douluo. He didn't need to go to the Wuhan Hall. The teachers of the academy alone could protect his safety. Zhao Walqi at level 79, Teacher Shaozin at level 71. Flender at level 78, Liu Erlang at level 75, and many other Soul Saint teachers. Not to mention Flender and Liu Erlang, it can also integrate martial arts. And many teachers together are enough to block a Douluo. If it takes a little longer, it will be safer when both Flender and Zhao Walqi have broken through to Contra. Of course, you have to be hard on yourself when you strike the iron. Hu Jiu decided that she will work harder in the future, and she can't relax just because the speed of training is fast. The improvement of one's own strength is the fundamental. Snapped. After listening to Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu's remarks, the hot-tempered Liu Erlang was the first to stand up and pat the table. Okay, Douluo, I really think that title Douluo can't be linked, right, Mr. Fu? Let's meet him for a while and dare to bully our students. If I don't give an explanation today, I will fight with him. Okay. Flender is also a temperamental person. It's okay to give in once. That's because he can't beat him. Now that Liu Erlang is by his side, under the fusion of martial arts, who wins and who loses will have to fight. To no point deceiving too much. Wait, I'm going to call Liu Xiao. Zhao Wuji walked out without saying a word. His disciple was bullied outside. Today, even if he gave up his old bones, he had to bite a piece of meat. Isn't it just title Douluo? I'll teach him a lesson today. Let him know that Shrek is not that easy to mess with. So, when Tang San and the others returned to the academy with Douluo, they happened to meet all of Shrek's teachers eager to go outside the academy. The leaders were Flender, Liu Erlang, and Zhao Walqi. Followed by Shaozin, Li Yusang, Lu Kibin, Kinming and other teachers from the college. Hu Jiu, Xiao Wu, and ZHU's Yuking were among the crowd. There were about 10 people in the group, clamoring to go out. President Flender, who are you? Seeing them, Tang San was startled, pretending not to know. Okay, Lonely Bo, you still have the courage to come to my academy. Brothers, use all your strength and tell him that Shrek is not so easy to bully. Liu Erlang was the most excited, and he was the first summon the martial spirit and reveal the spirit ring. Flender, who almost wore a pair of trousers with Liu Erlang, followed the spirit possession without even thinking. With an order, all the teachers behind them instantly gathered their strength and released their own martial spirits for a time. It was colorful, like a monstrous nuclear wave, and the powerful momentum. Even the clouds in the sky were washed away. It was also the first time that Hu Jiu saw the fusion of Flender and Liu Erlang's martial arts. This is a fiery red flying dragon fused with Liu Erlang's martial spirit as the main body. Huge body, more than 15 meters in diameter, a pair of huge wings like a bat, a tail as long as the body. The whole body is red, not covered with feathers. The bare skin is rough, the eyes are fierce. The teeth are sharp, and the whole body is burning. The raging flames are daunting, raw, an earth-shattering roar shocked the entire Shrek Academy. Everyone moved when they heard the wind, and all gathered at the entrance of the academy. Hu Jiu, Xiao Wu and Zhu Zuking looked at each other and nodded firmly. The teachers have already stood up for them. How can I fall behind others? In an instant, a 15-meter high and 5-meter sized tiger man stood up and stood side by side with the flying fire dragon. Roar. Slow. Wait. This is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. For a moment, Douluo behind Tang San broke out in cold sweat. Damn, where did this kid get such a big face? Even the entire school's teachers were dispatched, and it was Hu Jiu alone. Yes, Dean Flender, Xiao Jiu, hurry up to collect the spirit. Douluo is here to admit his mistake. Tang San also shouted anxiously. Among the people present, he was the only one who didn't want the teachers to fight with Douluo. Damu Bei and the others who came back with Tang San didn't know when they had returned to Hu Jiu's side. Each possessed their spirits and faced Douluo together. There was a look of Ran Yalan on his face. Look, this is what provokes our Shrek Academy. Everyone shouted in their hearts. Humph. Hearing Douluo and Tang San's words, and looking at Douluo's frightened appearance, Liu Erlang and Flender believed a little, and they dispelled the spirit fusion with suspicion. Douluo, are you really here to admit your mistake? Liu Erlang raised his chin and asked condescendingly, can we find a place to talk alone? Douluo's face turned purple. Seeing that there were more and more people at the gate of the academy, he felt ashamed that he was thrown into his grandma's house today. Haha, of course we will give poison Douluo's face. Seeing that Douluo was really not here to find trouble, Flender instantly returned to his senses, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. However, this smile matched with Flender's shoehorn face, and no matter how you looked at it, it was a treacherous smile. Apologize. Okay, I bullied our Shrek students, and now all the teachers of Shrek are working hard. If you don't give satisfactory compensation, don't leave today. Under the leadership of Flender, Douluo had to follow with a look of frustration. He regretted it too much. What would you do to mess with Shrek's people? It's just a soul bone. With his worth, he only needs to promise a few conditions to the Heaven Dao royal family, and the soul bone will be delivered to the door obediently. Next, Flender, Liu Erlang, Xiao Waoqi, Hu Jiu, and Douluo. The five of them had a friendly and cordial conversation. This conversation went on for 2 hours. By the time the conversation was over, it was already late at night. However, Hu Jiu was quite satisfied with this conversation. Including Flanders and others possibly. The only one with a dark face was Douluo, but it was getting late at this time, and no one cared whether his face was dark or not. The benefits of Flanders' side will not be discussed. Anyway, Douluo was bound to Shrek's chariot by Flender, a cunning man, and he almost lost his personal freedom. As for Hu Jiu, he received substantial compensation benefits. It's not too much, it just happens to be the money of 2 soul bones for such a small amount of money. For a title Douluo like Douluo, it's not too bad. Only shame is certain. Chapter 260 The Throbbing of the Blue-Silver Grass. Hu Jiu has been very troubled recently. The first is that, although the spirit bones are in hand, there is no free hang-up space, and the age of the spirit bones cannot be increased immediately, so they can only stare blankly. This made him very uncomfortable. Among the on-hook panels, the one with the highest on-hook level is King Kong's indestructible body, which is only a little short of the full level. and it is estimated that it will only take a few days, but it's not enough after the full level, and it has to be promoted. This time cannot be reached in half an hour. The second is about Xiao Wu point. Although in front of ZHU's Yuking, she behaved generously, but she was obviously trying to settle accounts after the autumn point when the two of them were alone. Their expressions were resentful, as if, they should have done something sorry for her in the first place. Point. No way, you have to admit that you did something wrong. Point. To this end, Hu Jiu sacrificed some training time, circling around Xiao Wu every day, almost playing Shandao City, and Xiao Wu temporarily let him go. Point. Because of this, Xiao Wu also took hold of Hu Jiu every time she wanted to go out to play, but Hu Jiu didn't want to go. She looked aggrieved and whispered this matter in his ear. Talking about it, Hu Jiu knew that she was wrong and could only satisfy some of her unreasonable demands. Because of the lack of rationale, Xiao Wu was almost eaten to death. Point. On ZHU's Yuking's side, Hu Jiu opened a small stove for her alone and used the ice and fire field to temper her body, which greatly increased her physical strength and soon surpassed Meng Yan and Mahangjin, and was almost on the same level as Xiao Wu. Point. A month later, everyone's strength has greatly increased. Point. Hu Jiu, Wuhan Hushan, 64th level food type Soul Emperor Xiao Wu, Martial Soul Soft Bone Rabbit, 57th level agility attack type Soul King. Point. Daimyu Bei, Martial Soul White Tiger, 55th level storm type Soul King. Point. Tang San, Martial Soul Blue Silver Grass, 50 level control system Soul Sect. Point. ZHU Zuking, a spirit cat of the Netherworld, a 49th level agility attack type Soul Sect. Point. Mahangjin, Martial Spirit Phoenix, 47th level assault type battle spirit sect. Point. Oscar, Martial Soul Sausage, level 46 food type auxiliary soul sect. Point. Ning Rangrong, Martial Spirit 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda, 46th level auxiliary spirit sect. Point. Meng Yiren, Martial Soul Dragon Staff, 45 level storm type battle soul sect. Point. Hu Jiu, Xiao Wu, Daimyu Bei, Tang San, Mahangjin, Oscar, and Ning Rangrong were each promoted by 2 levels. ZHU's Yuking had Hu Jiu open a small stove for her, and the level was the highest, and it actually increased by 3 levels. As for Meng, still, she was one step behind the others and only improved by 1 level. Point. At this time, the ranks of the crowd gradually widened as time passed. Xiao Jiu, I want to go out, can you accompany me? Tang San came to Hu Jiu's room and said after a while. Point. The reason for the twitching is because this thing is a bit ridiculous. Hunting for spirit rings? No problem. When do we leave? Hu Jiu nodded and agreed. It's not about the spirit ring, it's my martial spirit. I feel that there is a place calling it, and I want to go and see it, because he didn't know whether there was any danger in this trip. The first person he thought of was Hu Jiu. If he is in danger, Hu Jiu can take him to teleport far away to get himself out of danger. Oh, there is such a thing. Then I really have to go and see. Hu Jiu's mouth was slightly raised, and he was instantly interested. Point. Tang San didn't know what was going on. Could he still not know? This was the evolution of the blue silver grass. The two negotiated the time, made a quick decision, and set off tomorrow. Point. In the evening, Hu Jiu and Tang San told Daimyu Bei and the others that they would be away for a while. Point. Xiao Wu was the first to stand up to express her support, and she still strongly supported it. She said, I'm going to, let's act together. Xiao's business is our business. If we act together, we can still have someone to take care of. Daimyu Bei thought for a while and said, yes, the third brother's business is our business. Let's go together. Ning Rangrong also stood up and said, go together. Seeing everyone rushing to go with them, Tang San's heart warmed. Point. But he still shook his head and refused. No, Xiao Jiu and I are just going to check the situation. What we need is not fighting power. The fewer people who go, the better. You should practice hard. After all, it will be in 2 months. The Continental Elite Soul Master competition is over. We set our goals back then, so don't forget it. Well, this time, it's just me and Xiaozen. I have teleportation, so it's very easy to bring one person, so that it won't delay time. Hu Jiu made a final decision. To settle the matter, who is the boss of this group of people? Once Hu Jiu becomes serious, even Xiao Wu will not refute it. So, early the next morning, Hu Jiu and Tang San left freely with everyone's goodbye. Under Tang San's instruction, Hu Jiu directly activated teleportation mode and started teleportation. Little San, do you feel that this direction seems to be the way to the Holy Spirit Village? After teleporting for a while, Hu Jiu asked with raised eyebrows. Well, your feeling is right. The direction is the Holy Spirit Village. Tang San nodded affirmatively. I haven't come to the Holy Soul Village to arrange the spatial coordinates in advance. Let's go to Soto City first, and then go to the Holy Soul Village. Hu Jiu suggested. If there are no spatial coordinates, his teleport distance is only more than 500 meters, and it takes too much time to rush. If teleportation was carried out over a long distance, he would be able to take Tang San to Soto City in just one day. Listen to you. Of course, Tang San had no objection to this. A day later, the two had come to Soto City, found a hotel to rest for one night, and continued to set off the next day. This time, Hu Jiu could only teleport a short distance with Tang San. Because the coordinates were not arranged in advance, the speed of the two of them slowed down. But it is not without advantages. On the way, every distance, Hu Jiu will plant teleport Hu Ginseng in advance. If you use it again next time, you can teleport directly. A day later, Tang San discovered that the place where he was summoned was not the Holy Spirit Village, but another unknown place. That night, when the two were resting, Tang San summoned the blue silver grass, feeling the calling from above. This feeling is very strange, as if the blood vessels are connected. The closer to the destination, the stronger the throbbing it brings to him. Such a strong feeling, as if urging him to go there all the time, made Tang San lose his mind to sleep. He simply put the blue silver grass beside him and started to meditate with his eyes closed. But who would have thought that when he started to meditate, this feeling was even stronger all around. All the blue silver grasses began to emit a faint glow, forming one piece, like a dream under the starry sky at night. The surrounding blue silver grass seemed to be calling him, and this feeling was particularly clear after he entered a state of meditation. He could even distinguish the emotion of each blue silver grass with the gradual release of mental power. His thoughts extended, and the blue silver grass aura Tang San felt became more and more powerful. Gradually, he was immersed in this feeling. He found that all the blue silver grasses seemed to have a feeling of embarrassment towards them. As if it was his own child, excitedly talking to his father. Chapter 261. Tang San is too steady. Tang San had never felt such an emotion. Confucianism, obedience, kindness. It seems that the surrounding blue silver grass is his eyes, and there is no need to release too much mental power. Every blue silver grass in the forest releases a faint mental fluctuation. Although the individual is not strong, there are blue silver everywhere. The grass is linked together, but it forms a rather huge mental magnetic field. Integrate with the spiritual power released by Tang San. Through them, the range that Tang San could sense suddenly increased exponentially. Every blue silver grass seemed to become Tang San's eyes and ears, using mental power to probe everything in the outside world. This feeling reminded him of Hu Jiu's terrifying 5-sense perception ability. I'm afraid this is how Xiao Jiu feels when she uses her perception ability. Tang San flashed this thought in his heart. At this moment, a voice without warning suddenly sounded in Tang San's heart. That voice was as old as ancient times, but it made Tang San feel inexplicably kind. King, great king, is it really you? You have finally come to me. Thank God. Wan, are you talking to me? Tang San was shocked. He didn't understand why a voice appeared in his spiritual world. You must know that a person's spiritual world is the most mysterious existence and the most secret place. If a person's spiritual world is invaded, it is equivalent to his own life being in the hands of others. The spirit bone attached to Hu Jiu's head is capable of forcibly invading the enemy's spiritual consciousness through his powerful mental ability, thereby destroying the opponent. But now, in Tang San's spiritual world, an unfamiliar voice appeared inexplicably. Although the voice surprised him, he still raised a strong sense of vigilance at this moment. Outside, around Tang San, In the originally peaceful and distant blue-silver grass spiritual magnetic field, a strong spiritual force suddenly came out. This spiritual force was quickly entangled with Tang San's spiritual force, like two ropes. As if tied together. Wang, please come to me, can you? The voice seemed to become more urgent, with a strong desire point. This longing mental power instantly made Tang San decisive. A firm look flashed in his eyes, and he actually cut off the mental power outside his body resolutely. Puff. A mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth instantly, and Tang San's face also turned pale. The mental power that he had just abandoned was almost 1/3 of his entire body. This time, he was hit hard and his spirit was sluggish. Little San, what's wrong with you? Hu Jiu's figure appeared beside Tang San. His perception ability spread instantly, and he found a mental wave that was disappearing quickly. You're so brave. Stay with me. Hu Jiu shouted loudly. Two white beams of light appeared in his eyes, as if they were real. They instantly blasted towards the spiritual force point. The ground in the distance was swept away by Hu Jiu's tyrannical mental impact, and a strong explosion instantly occurred. The wind howled, and the rocks and mud were scattered. Ah! Vaguely, Hu Jiu heard a scream. Cough. Cough. Tang San pressed his head with one hand. The other hand quickly took out a handful of medicinal pills from the 24 bridge bright moonlit night and threw it into his mouth without looking at it, then closed his eyes and began to digest the medicinal power. Hu Jiu felt it for a while and found that there was no other strangeness, and then looked at Tang San. Shouldn't be. Why does a spiritual force appear for no reason? Could it be Ghost Douluo? But that's not right. Ghost Douluo is something I, a little soul emperor, can easily deal with. After thinking for a long time, Hu Jiu finally had a vague guess. The problem still lies with Tang San. I remember that in the original book, when Tang San's blue-silver grass evolved, there was a blue-silver king next to him. Is this shit doing a ghost? While Hu Jiu was thinking wildly, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief and opened his eyes. Little San, what the hell is going on? Have you seen the enemy? Hu Jiu's face became serious. Compared with Tang San, although he was much more powerful, he couldn't guarantee that the thing that attacked Tang San just now wouldn't work. Attack yourself. Just now, I was meditating. Then Tang San explained to Hu Jiu with lingering fears, and at the same time secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and resolutely gave up some spiritual power, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. After hearing the specific process, Hu Jiu's face became strange. It turned out to be the Blue Silver King. He didn't know if Hu Jiu had any malicious intentions towards Tang San, but he knew that Tang San's injury this time was in vain. After all, the distance was so far away, and that mental power was not strong. Even if Tang San ignored it, he wouldn't cause any harm to him. But this kid Tang San was a little too cautious, feeling that his spiritual power was entangled, and he gave up decisively, so that Hu Jiu didn't know what to say. But this matter also reminded Hu Jiu, the Blue Silver King who lived for an unknown number of years may not be a good thing. The reason why Tang San was able to go so smoothly in the original book was because Tang Heo was in charge. But this time, there were only two brothers, Hu Jiu and Tang San, and their grades were much worse. Little San, inform Uncle Heo, it's just the two of us. I don't think it's safe. Hu Jiu said decisively, but I don't know where Dad is. He didn't leave me his contact information. Tang San smiled dryly. His son was also a failure, and he didn't even know how to contact his father. Simple. Summon your clear sky hammer. I think that the last time Uncle Heo was able to find you, it was mostly because he felt the aura of the clear sky hammer. Hu Jiu had guessed it a long time ago, and made a casual move. Summon Wuhan Hushin, and then use the transformation ability to turn Hushin into a clear sky hammer. Hey, your martial spirit is really good. The weight seems to have risen again, easily. Flipping the clear sky hammer in his hand, Hu Jiu said with satisfaction. Tang San, how does he feel that Hu Jiu is more familiar with the clear sky hammer than he is? Thinking about it carefully, Hu Jiu's method was really good, and he immediately summoned the clear sky hammer. What should we do next? Tang San asked. Wait, you're injured anyway. Take a day off, and I'll use the ice and fire domain to help you heal. Also, Tang San's spirit is blue silver grass, which is considered a plant type. Otherwise, Hu Jiu really can't do anything about it. His holy light restoration soul skill is temporarily powerless against mental trauma. It can only expel abnormal conditions and restore physical injuries. Of course, it can also replenish physical strength. Okay. Only Tang San knew how much benefit Hu Jiu's ice and fire domain had for him. Maybe because of his martial spirit, he actually felt the power to evolve his martial spirit in Hu Jiu's domain point. If it wasn't for this discovery, he wouldn't often lick his face and go to the field in front of Hu Jiu. Chapter 262. The Field of Ice and Fire. Now, when Hu Jiu thought about it, red and blue light spots appeared in the sky around his body, which were dense and beautiful. The light spots fell on the surrounding flowers and plants, and those flowers and plants instantly swayed, striving to stretch their branches and leaves, wanting to be illuminated by more light spots. The growth rate of the flowers and plants that absorbed the light spots is almost visible to the naked eye. As long as you don't pay attention to them for a while, those flowers and plants will change their appearance and become more lush, as if they had been hit with hormones. As for Tang San, he is also an enjoyer, with the clear sky hammer in his left hand and the blue silver grass in his right, squinting his eyes, trying to catch the light spot in the ice and fire domain. He felt that with the appearance of Hu Jiu's ice and fire domain, he had self-injured his mental power just now. Damage taken is being healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Zao. Jiu. It turns out that this is the real effect of your ice and fire domain. I feel that my blue silver grass has grown quite a bit. It is stronger than the ice and fire eyes. Why didn't you take it out earlier? Tang San said happily. It's beautiful to think about. Hu Jiu rolled his eyes. You think the realm is so easy to open? Opening this thing will not only consume soul power, but also mental power, hurting the mind and body. As far as I'm now, at most only can last for 2 hours. Okay, I knew it, you ignorant fellow. Tang San complained. Don't think he doesn't know. Not only he knows, but Damu Bei and others all know. Hu Jiu, this guy, has been opening a small stove for ZHU's Yuking. Maybe it's Hu Jiu's essence that he focuses on sex and friends. Hey. Hu Jiu didn't refute it. Isn't it a matter of course to be nice to his own woman? When it was almost noon the next day, Hu Jiu felt a huge aura rushing towards them at an extremely fast speed. Hu Jiu stood up abruptly and said to Tang San, who was closing his eyes and resting, "Little San, your father is here." Tang San jumped up instantly, looking forward excitedly. Whoosh, in just a few breaths, a figure in a black robe with tattered clothes appeared in front of the two of them. "Ah, you looking for me?" Tang Heo frowned and looked at them, a little dissatisfied. He is taking care of his Yin and doesn't want to be disturbed, not even his son. "Dad, it's like this." Tang San didn't seem to notice Tang Heo's dissatisfaction. A happy expression hung on his face and began to explain what happened last night. Hu Jiu silently caressed his forehead, a little troubled. Is this guy lacking love? If Tang Heo dared to treat him with such an attitude, he would have left home long ago. I don't care about such an old man. Well, he can also be used as a thug. Ah, you level 50? Tang Heo habitually raised the jug for a while. His eyes were dull for a moment. How could it be so fast? Immediately, he looked at Hu Jiu at will, and was stunned again. Good guy, this is over 60 levels, faster than his son. This unscientific. Tang Heo couldn't care about listening to what Tang San was saying at this moment. His eyes stared straight at Hu Jiu. His son's ability to cultivate so fast was absolutely inseparable from him. This guy has a secret. When Hu Jiu was still at the Nuading Elementary Spirit Master Academy, Tang Heo vaguely discovered that Hu Jiu had a soul skill that was helpful to his cultivation, but he didn't care much at that time. There are very few things he cares about. But now it seems that Hu Jiu's soul skill is quite extraordinary. Hey, Uncle Heo, I'll invite you to eat ginseng. Under Tang Heo's gaze, Hu Jiu honestly made a ginseng for cultivation, but he also kept a hand, and the effect was only 10 times as effective. Tang Heo took it and glanced at it, then ate it. The effect of Hushin was noticed by him in an instant. Hu Shen, how long can you keep it? The name of this martial spirit is too tongue-in-cheek. 1. or 2 months. If you put it in the soul tool, it will be fine to keep it for half a year. Hu Jiu shrank his neck, feeling that he was fed by himself again. Very good food. I feel that your ginseng can double the effect of cultivation. If you have it in stock, give it to me. Tang Heo didn't know what politeness was. Double? Isn't it 10 times? Hu Jiu asked in surprise. It's the same for others, but I'm a titled Douluo, so it's different. Tang Heo said lightly. Point man, this is all for you to pretend. Silent for a while. Hu Jiu honestly handed over a large amount of cultivated ginseng, all of which he managed to save. Tang Heo stretched out his hand, put away all the cultivated ginseng, and threw a book to him. Hu Jiu hurriedly took it, and finally made it. He has been waiting for this day for a long time. Without caring about anything else, Hu Jiu immediately opened it, and looked at it. Tyrants. Before Hu Jiu could carefully observe the effect of this self-created soul skill called Tyrant Body, Tang Heo interrupted. Okay, go back and take a look by yourself. Now, you all come with me. With that said, Tang Heo immediately walked forward regardless of whether the two heard it or not. His steps are not big, like an overworked old man, walking unsteadily, but every step is like a teleportation, and he takes a long distance in an instant. In the blink of an eye, they can only watch. It was Tang Heo's back. Hu Jiu and Tang San looked at each other and immediately started to follow. After walking for about 2 hours, Tang Heo suddenly stopped. This is an unknown forest, full of ancient tall trees, endless as far as the eye can see. Sit down. Tang Heo pointed to the ground at Tang San. Tang San was stunned for a moment, but he still sat down with his knees crossed. It's just that he didn't understand what his father wanted him to do. Tang Heo didn't explain, and walked to Tang San's side. Release your blue silver grass, then feel it with your heart. With your current mental power, you should be able to feel it. Originally, I didn't want you to get this so early, but your mental power has increased to the current level, and it should be time to get it. It's not that I don't want to, it's that I didn't expect Tang San to improve so quickly. Hu Jiu added secretly beside him. The way this father and son get along is really interesting. Then, what if I encounter yesterday's spirit again? Tang San asked. He had always been vigilant about yesterday's mysterious spirit. There is me. The faint words showed endless confidence. Uncle Heo is domineering. Hu Jiu boasted without thinking. Having received his father's promise, Tang San felt relieved. He closed his eyes. The blue silver grass was released on its own, slowly emerging around his body. The spiritual force condensed and dispersed to the surroundings. Blue silver grass is a common plant in Douluo continent. Soon, Tang San entered the state of yesterday. The surrounding blue silver grass seemed to be calling him, and his mental power was greatly enhanced, making his feeling especially clear. King, great king, I finally see you again. It was the voice from last night, but this time, the voice contained endless grievances. Tang San didn't know what to say, so he could only let this mental power and his mental power be entangled together. Not knowing what to do, Wang, can you come to me, please? Said the voice in a pleading tone. Opening his eyes, Tang San subconsciously looked at his father. Chapter 263 Selfless Blue Silver King. Tang Heo looked at Tang San lightly. You should have felt it already. Go. I'll wait for you here. Sometimes, getting a spirit ring doesn't require hunting. Soul ring. Although Tang San didn't understand what his father meant, he still stood up. What surprised him was that he did not deliberately control his mental power at this time, but the strong mental aura was still connected to him and kept calling to him. Step into the forest. Tang San suddenly felt that the threat from the spirit beasts in the forest had clearly faded. It was as if the soul beast hidden in the forest suddenly made way for him. With a father to affirm, he is not hesitating. Get up. Fast forward in the direction of the spiritual traction. Hu Jiu rolled his eyes, glanced at Tang Heo who was drinking, and quietly took 2 steps in the direction Tang San left. Looking back, seeing that Tang Heo didn't react to this, Hu Jiu immediately accelerated his pace and chased after him. When he came to Tang San, a strange scene appeared in front of Hu Jiu. I saw where Tang San had gone. The blue silver grass on the ground seemed to be calling out excitedly. Swing gently and rhythmically. It was like dancing happily for Tang San's arrival point. The forest area is not large. At least it can't be compared with the Great Stardao Forest. But get into it. The two found out. The plants here look ancient. It seems to have gone through a long time. Tall and towering trees can be seen everywhere. Even the sun's rays are difficult to shoot from these lush plants to the ground. Because Tang San was eager to know the truth of the matter, the speed of advance was extremely fast. Along the way, he did not encounter any obstacle from any soul beast, and he easily followed the pull of that spiritual power. After running for about an hour or so, the mental power that connected with him became particularly clear. King, I'm here. The spiritual call appeared again. There was even a hint of nervousness in the excitement. Passing through two ancient trees that required at least several people to hug, Tang San moved his mental power and locked onto a plant in front of him. He could clearly feel that the spiritual call came from this plant. The slender vines climbed up, entangled with each other, until about 10 meters in the air. It was like a special plant made up of countless vines condensed together. The whole body is clear blue, and the skin flashes with a special crystal. Around it, the blue-silver grass grows extraordinarily lush. Each of the vines has the thickness of an ordinary person's waist, and is more than a foot in diameter. It was wiggling slightly at this point. In the middle of the vine, at the condensation place, there was a trace that looked like a human face. At this point its expression seemed to be laughing. This piece of vine gave him the feeling of being powerful, and the extremely powerful breath was unreservedly released. From the face in the center, strong mental fluctuations spurted out, surrounding Tang San's body. Happily rhythm. You're calling me? Tang San stared at the huge vine in front of him. Although he already felt that the other party was not malicious at all, and that his father was protecting his safety outside, he couldn't help but feel a little more vigilant in his heart. Yes, the great king. It is I who is calling you. The face in the center of the vines moved, showing a very humanized expression. He opened his mouth and spit out human words. You can still speak. This blue-silver king is amazing. Hu Jiu naturally stood behind Tang San. At this time, Tang San was the protagonist. Who are you? Why do you call me king? Tang San asked curiously. He had never heard of talking plants. Vine smiled and said, because you have a bloodline more noble than me. If I'm the king of the blue-silver grass, then you are the emperor in the blue-silver grass. Hearing these words, Tang San understood somewhat in his heart. His brain was spinning fast, and various possibilities kept popping up in his mind. In the end, he thought of his mother, that noble blood, which belonged to his mother. Before Tang San could speak, the blue-silver king spoke again. Before you are at a bloodline realm like yours, I have to cultivate at least another 15,000 years. I can see you, and feel the aura of your bloodline. I seem to have found it. There is a way to the nobler blood. Thank you, my king. Tang San frowned slightly. I'm sorry, maybe you made a mistake. I'm not your king. I'm a human being, not the blue-silver grass. The emperor in the blue-silver grass you mentioned should be my mother. Yes, the breath on your body is the breath of the blue-silver empress. As the son of the empress, what you have is the blood of the blue-silver royal family. What do you mean? My blue-silver grass is not ordinary blue-silver grass? Tang San instantly heard a different meaning from these words. Yes, what you have is the purest blue-silver imperial bloodline. If you have to describe your martial spirit, then I think it is more appropriate to use a blue-silver emperor, not the blue-silver grass. All the blue-silver bloodlines are your people. Haven't you felt their call to you, blue-silver emperor? Tang San was instantly filled with huge surprises. It turned out that his blue-silver grass was not a waste spirit. For a moment, Tang San felt his heart beating faster. But I have never felt anything special about my blue-silver grass. Maybe you don't understand. The strength I have now is through some special methods. Come to practice. Tang San always believed that the reason why he was able to possess innate full spirit power at the beginning had nothing to do with his own martial spirit, but was obtained by cultivating Zhu and Shandong. But he probably didn't know that the reason why he still had to rely on Zhu and Shandong was because Tang Heo abused his son and never gave him enough food, or it was intentional at all, because he never thought of making Tang San a soul division. The Blue Silver King sighed and said, yes, you are right. In the past, your Blue Silver Emperor was no different from ordinary Blue Silver grass. This is our fault. Because your Blue Silver Imperial bloodline is not the same as yours. There's no real awakening. That's why you can't feel its power. Great King, didn't you come here to let me help you awaken it? Listening to what the Blue Silver King said, if Tang San still doesn't understand, then he is not Tang San. Awakened. His martial spirit had already awakened once at the age of 6. Do you still need a second time? Seemingly sensing Tang San's thoughts, the Blue Silver King said patiently, Your Majesty, how can the awakening of ordinary people truly awaken your noble bloodline? On this continent, I'm the only one besides you. The longest lived Blue Silver grass. That's why my name is Blue Silver King. I finally see you as your eternal subordinates. We will always protect you. Are you willing to protect your subjects forever? Without any hesitation, Tang San stared earnestly at the Blue Silver King in front of him, nodded firmly, I will. 2 drops of blue liquid flowed down from the eyes of Blue Silver King's human face. It's been almost 20 years and I haven't felt His Majesty's breath. Today, we are finally no longer motherless children. Your Majesty, please feel the worship of your subjects for you. Damn, why did that person appear here? Without him, I would be the next Blue Silver Emperor. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264 The Awakening of the Blue Silver Emperor. As soon as the Blue Silver King finished speaking, an incomparably huge aura suddenly rose up. The whole forest was boiling. The faint blue brilliance quietly emerged from each blue silver grass, and a blue silver grass may only be a tiny blue light spot, but when the blue light from hundreds of millions of blue silver grass condenses together, then it's a blue ocean. Tang San immediately felt that he had become the center of this ocean. His body was like a huge swallowing mouth, frantically swallowing the blue ocean rushing in from the outside world. An unprecedented heat flow rose from the deepest part of the body. At this moment, Tang San didn't feel the impact and pressure brought by the huge energy, nor did he feel the expansion in his body. He was surprised to find that when the heat flow in his body emerged, an extremely gentle breath gently brushed through his body. For some reason, when he felt this gentle aura, Tang San suddenly had the urge to cry. It seemed to be a soothing emotion. It was as if he was bearing the caress of his mother at this time. Closing his eyes, Tang San didn't want to let this feeling go away. He gave up perception of everything in the outside world, and didn't even use his superclass mind to calculate his own gains and losses at this time. All his mind was on that without reservation. And above all, the tenderness that you ask for. The clear sky hammer was inherited from his father, and the blue silver grass was inherited from his mother. No matter if it was the ordinary blue silver grass or the Blue Silver Emperor mentioned by the Blue Silver King in front of him. This is what the mother of this world gave her. Tang San knew that gentle aura was exactly the aura his mother had left to his own blood. A mother's love is the most selfless love in the world. Tang San had never gotten this feeling before, but now he got it. Although he still has no mother in this world. But at this moment, the deep maternal love pervaded his heart. Deep inside, something seemed to shatter and melt. Tang San seemed to see the scene when he was just born in this world. A stunning woman with long blue hair hugged him in his arms. A drop of crystal blue tears slid down her tender face, dripping on her heart and slowly infiltrating. Although he couldn't feel the sound in the picture, he could clearly feel the woman calling him lovingly. Mother. Tang San really wanted to shout, but no matter what he calls it, the woman in the picture is still slowly fading. The rest only in swaddling to himself, and the light blue spread on the chest. At this moment, the real Tang San stand there, already burst into tears. The surface of his skin has completely turned into a crystal blue. Countless blue silver grass emerged from him. Those blue silver grasses are also surprisingly crystal clear. Seeing the miraculous transformation on Tang San's body, Hu Jiu suddenly had an idea, and an excellent idea popped into his mind. Before he could think about it, Hu Jiu shouted, Little San, I'll help you. An instant, Hu Jiu's body erupted with a strong momentum, but this momentum did not burst, and there was no offensiveness at all. Instead, it was as gentle as the spring breeze. Countless red and blue light spots appeared around him, and then expanded at an extremely fast speed, 100 meters. 200 meters, and did not stop until 500 meters outside the ancient forest. Tang Heo suddenly stopped drinking. And then his eyes turned to the center of the forest point. As if passing through layers of trees, his eyes fell directly on Hu Jiu. Even Tang San couldn't even look at it. In the ancient forest, around Hu Jiu and Tang San, countless blue-silver grasses frantically waved their branches and leaves, grabbing the red and blue light spots. The blue-silver grass that grabbed the light spot began to grow wildly, and it has grown taller and grown up in an unreasonable way. On them, blue faint light spots appeared quickly, and the speed was extremely fast. To the naked eye, it was like a blue light merging into the blue ocean. At the same time, Hu Jiu's face suddenly showed an extremely refreshing expression, because the blue ocean around him finally didn't ignore him, and his body was wrapped by the blue ocean. Hu Jiu only felt an unprecedented heat flow rising from the deepest part of his body. This breath is extremely gentle, and the breath gently brushed from the whole body. At this moment, he also shed move tears silently. The soul power of Hu Jiu began to soar, and the level began to increase rapidly. Even the scope of the ice and fire domain has exceeded the limit, expanding continuously with the support of countless blue-silver grasses. The entire forest is within the range of his domain. Hundreds of millions of blue-silver grasses are blessed by the ice and fire domain, and they are all growing wildly, bringing more blue light spots into the blue ocean. A huge amount of blue light rushed in. Tang San's body changed first. Soul rings kept popping out of him one after another. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple. 4 spirit rings quietly emerged, neatly placed on Tang San in order. And those countless huge blue light spots quickly invaded into these 4 spirit rings, giving each of them a layer of blue halo. At the same time, the blue-silver grass around Tang San's body began to change. This was not given by the condensed blue ocean from the outside world, but radiated from Tang San himself. The originally crystal clear blue-silver grass became more transparent. Gradually, it turned into a bright and transparent sapphire. In the center of that crystal blue, there is a golden texture. From the roots of each blue-silver grass to the leaves, the true blue-silver emperor finally awakened. In an instant, under the influence of the golden blue light that spread out from Tang San, the blue light in the air became noticeably larger. On the ground, every blue-silver grass began to become crystal clear. Crazy growth faster. Even the blue-silver king in front of Tang San became transparent under the influence of the blue-gold aura he released. There was a satisfied look on his face. The 4 spirit rings on Tang San's body all radiated blue golden luster, and soon, the blue golden light penetrated into the spirit rings again. It seemed that these 4 spirit rings were no different from before. But in fact, they are no longer the 4 spirit rings of the blue-silver grass, but the 4 spirit rings of the blue-silver emperor. Tang San's bulging muscles contracted a little, and the whole person looked more coordinated. The body has not changed, but his black hair gradually turned dark blue. In that dark blue, also mixed with a touch of golden brilliance. Just like the blue-silver grass beside him. The crystal light long hair is so dazzling. Tang San's whole body attributes are invisible at this moment. It has nothing to do with soul power. It was completely the reshaping of his own after the awakening of his martial soul. The characteristic of blue-silver grass is its perseverance and tenacious vitality. As the emperor of blue-silver, Tang San undoubtedly displayed this perfectly at this time. At this time, the vigorous vitality in his body has reached the level of a machine terror from the outside. His face was fairer than Oscar, his hair was loose, and he was more handsome than Damu. Compared with Hu Jiu next to him, he was on a paragraph. Chapter 265. The strength soars. The blue light gradually subsided, and Tang San's heart gradually woke up. But he really didn't want to wake up, because that kind of gentleness is slowly passing away along with his sobering process. The original 4 spirit rings disappeared one by one in Tang San's body, and the countless blue light also began to condense rapidly, condensing around Tang San's body. Huge blue, converging into a huge blue halo surrounding Tang San's body. The halo gets smaller and darker as it compresses. Finally, all the blue condensed on him, and turned into a halo of the same size as the spirit ring, and the countless superimposed blues finally turned into black. Shishiren, That brand new black halo began to rhythm around Tang San's body cordially. Everything around was quiet. Point on the ground. The blue silver grass that had grown crazily was at least 10 times taller than before. The crystals on their bodies gradually subsided as the blue light disappeared, and the breath of life that could be released became more intense. Point without Tang San, the blue ocean instantly shifted its target. All the rays of light condensed together and poured into Hu Jiu's body. Point Tang San looked at Hu Jiu's increasingly powerful aura in confusion. It was obvious that Hu Jiu's spirit power level had been improved by leaps and bounds. Don't disturb him. Your companion helped us, and we are repaying it, the Blue Silver King said softly, with a complicated look on the tree-rooted old face. Point they thought that the Blue Silver Emperor's awakening would already give them a great chance, but they didn't expect that a bigger chance was yet to come. Point the power of the field of ice and fire. Even he has benefited a lot. If he stays in such a field for a long time, he is sure to advance to the Blue Silver Emperor in his lifetime. Point it's a pity that he didn't dare to move this person, because there was someone outside who was watching him all the time. Thank you. Tang San respectfully bowed to the Blue Silver King. It is we who should thank you. It is your presence that awakens our stronger vitality. The spirit ring you have obtained now is formed by me according to the limit that your body can bear. According to human beings, your spirit ring is roughly equivalent to what a 25,000-year-old spirit beast can appear. He does not come from the outside world, but from yourself. He will evolve as your own endurance increases. Whenever you are in the world of your subjects, it will adapt to your body on its own. That is to say, as long as my physical quality can bear it, my spirit ring will keep improving, right? Tang San's eyes lit up. Such a talent is similar to Hu Jiu. He felt that the reason why Hu Jiu's spirit ring age could increase so quickly was probably the same as his situation. Otherwise he couldn't explain it. The same spirit ring cultivation method would be of little use to him, while Hu Jiu's spirit ring age was swish up. Yes, the Blue Silver King said proudly. This is the unique talent of our Blue Silver Grass clan, but this kind of talent is only available to the Emperor and the Blue Silver Grass. Thank you. Tang San was ecstatic, thanking him again excitedly. Point in this way, in the future, the age of his spirit ring can increase as quickly as Hu Jiu. Point that is to say, he was so excited after hearing the news. Tang San didn't think about it. In fact, he was different from Hu Jiu. All of Hu Jiu's spirit rings can be continuously improved by hanging up, but only the 5th spirit ring can do this. The gap is not that large. Point at this time, Hu Jiu finally woke up, opened his eyes, and 2 golden lights shot out from his eyes, like 2 sharp arrows. Level 69. Earned. Feeling his own strength, Hu Jiu made a move, and then fell into ecstasy. Point it actually increased by a full 5 levels. Sure enough, keeping up with the protagonist's pace is the right choice. Point relying on Tang San's opportunity. The improvement this time was actually comparable to the effect of an immortal grass, which made him sigh. Zao. Jiu. Seeing Hu Jiu awake, Tang San beamed with joy, striding to his side. Let's go, Uncle Heo. I'm afraid we are in a hurry. We should go back. Hu Jiu looked meaningfully at the Blue Silver King not far away. This is an 85,000-year-old soul beast. If it wasn't inappropriate, he would have wanted to keep it as his 8th spirit ring. Point. But it could be kept for Tang San. If he absorbed this thing, it would be a match made in heaven. Point just saw. If Tang San's heart was so cruel. Hu Jiu's gaze made the Blue Silver King's face stiff, and a feeling of fear surged in his heart. Dear friend, thank you for your help for our Blue Silver Grass clan. From now on, you will be the most precious friend of our Blue Silver Grass clan. I have a gift for you. Please don't refuse. Blue Silver King said with a pained face. Oh, what gift? Hu Jiu didn't expect that the Blue Silver King would be so sensible. Since this is the case, we will be friends in the future. Don't worry, I have always been very friendly to friends. Look, as a light beam suddenly spit out from the mouth of the Blue Silver King and instantly fell on Hu Jiu. Point. After spitting out the beam, the Blue Silver King's aura faded in an instant, as if it had consumed a lot. Point. Hu Jiu didn't dodge. With Uncle Heo around, he didn't believe that the Blue Silver King dared to play any tricks. The light beam fell on Hu Jiu's forehead, forming a strange pattern, which seemed quite mysterious. Hu Jiu only felt that there was a fresh breath on his forehead. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the entire forest suddenly seemed to be alive, especially the blue-silver grass that was half a person tall beside him, shaking joyfully on the branches and leaves. Waves of gratitude came to him. What is this? Hu Jiu touched his forehead curiously. This thing seems to have the effect of an affinity plant. This is a natural gift from our blue-silver grass clan. With it, all blue-silver grass will be your friends in the future. You can communicate with them and ask them to help you. They will not refuse. Blue Silver King said. Haha, thank you so much, my friend. Hu Jiu touched the mark on his forehead happily when he heard the words. It seems that Tang San has such abilities now. For him, it's not very useful, but also it's not that it doesn't work. At least it will be easier to find soul beasts in the future. With a thought, the mark on Hu Jiu's forehead instantly disappeared. After thanking the Blue Silver King, the two said goodbye to him and quietly walked out of this ancient forest. On the way, Hu Jiu and Tang San exchanged the results of the trip. Hu Jiu's harvest was not bad. Not only did his spirit power level rise to rank 69, but he also earned a mark. After a while, he would be able to rise to rank 70 and become a soul saint. And Tang San's gains were not small. Not only did he break through to become a spirit sect, but his rank had reached the 53rd rank, almost catching up with Damu Bei. The most important thing was the spirit ring. The 25,000-year spirit ring was longer than Hu Jiu's 5th spirit ring. Of course, the biggest gain was the evolution of the blue-silver grass martial spirit into a true blue-silver emperor. That huge and vigorous vitality radiated from Tang San all the time, making Hu Jiu envious. Chapter 266. Of course, this trip, I have an even bigger gain. Tang San looked at Hu Jiu mysteriously, his eyes full of pride. What else? Hu Jiu was stunned. Apart from the evolution of the blue-silver grass into the blue-silver emperor, what else could he gain? Look. Tang San stretched out his hands, and a light blue light circle suddenly spread out from him, and in the blink of an eye it had spread to within 50 meters in diameter, covered by Tang San's aperture. Hu Jiu only felt a cool feeling from his body, and even his thoughts calmed down. Huh. This is the realm. How could Hu Jiu not know this kind of familiar fluctuation? Domain. He also has it. But why did Tang San get the blue-silver domain at this time? Hu Jiu was a little puzzled. In the original book, it didn't say that his domain was obtained after the evolution of martial arts. This is actually his mistake. In the original book, when Tang San's blue-silver grass spirit evolved, the blue-silver domain awakened. In the Slaughter City, it was because of the blue-silver domain that he was able to stay awake all the time. State, not lost in the killing. Haha, I also have a domain. In front of Hu Jiu, Tang San showed off like a child. Shen, you are so weak in this field. What are you showing off? Can you attack? Hu Jiu cast a disdainful glance and sneered. Tang San became embarrassed. His field is really weak at the moment. The best effect is to make people calm and not disturbed by the outside world. Of course, there is also a role of disguise. Through the changes in the blue-silver domain, the spirit ring can be camouflaged, the color can be changed at will, and the opponent can even visually make the spirit ring invisible. It can also hide itself from the opponent, and even its own breath can be disguised as a camouflage. It is the same as the breath of the blue-silver grass in the domain. However, these abilities are far worse than Hu Jiu's ice and fire domain. The ice and fire domain can not only speed up the growth of plants like the ice and fire to instrument size, but also summon the power of ice and fire to attack and limit the enemy, which is very powerful. Anyway, I also have a domain, and my domain will become stronger sooner or later. Tang San was not convinced. After the martial spirit evolved, he felt that he stood up and no longer had to hide behind Hu Jiu. He wants to surpass Hu Jiu. Okay, I look forward to your field becoming stronger. Hu Jiu laughed, wanting to compare himself with this guy. Isn't this self-indulgent? Talking and laughing, the two walked out of the ancient forest all the way. As soon as they left the forest, the two saw Tang Heo sitting cross-legged and closing his eyes, feeling the breath of the two. Tang Heo slowly opened his eyes. But when his eyes fell on Tang San, he was completely stunned. Infinitely gentle expression. Tang Heo's lips were trembling. His eyes stared at Tang San's face infatuatedly. 2 lines of tears flowed down his old face. Ayan. He called softly. Tang Heo's voice was also trembling. The whole person seemed to stand up in tremors. Stepping forward abruptly, he had already come to Tang San, opened his arms, and pulled his son into his arms forcefully. Ayan, do you know how much I miss you? Why are you so stupid? Why? Tang Heo cried out in tears. Tang San could clearly feel his father's hot tears dripping down his shirt. Yin, that should be my mother's name. Unconsciously, Tang San also burst into tears. The father and son hugged each other and wept, and neither of them spoke for a long time. It was Tang San who was the first to speak with difficulty. With such a touching scene, what else could Hu Jiu do? We can only step back silently and give the father and son time to communicate privately. Dad. Tang Heo's body stiffened for a moment. He slowly raised his head, grabbed Tang San's shoulders with both hands, and looked at him dazedly. Dad. Tang San called again. Tang Heo murmured, you know, your mother is beautiful. She is really beautiful and beautiful. She is the most perfect woman in the world. Gentle, kind, beautiful. All the words used to describe beauty seem to be for the sake of she created it. You are now. You are finally like her. I seem to see her waving to me again. Look. Up to the sky. Tang Heo suddenly shouted loudly. Ayin. Did you see that? Our son has grown up. He has grown up. Ayin father was in severe pain. Deeply infected Tang San. Tang Heo's screaming made everything around him tremble until a trace of scarlet spread from the corner of his mouth. He roared up to the sky. It just fell straight to the ground. Tang San hurriedly supported his father's body. Surprised, he raised his hand and pressed it on Tang Heo's chest. A mellow Zuan Gong internal energy was injected into his father's body. Oops, my father was overexcited and his injuries erupted. Tang San turned his head anxiously, looking at Hu Jiu. Zhao Jiu, come here. Father's injuries have erupted. Hu Jiu, who was not far away, flashed in front of Tang San in an instant, reached out and took out a holy light to restore Hu ginseng, and immediately fed it to Tang Heo. At the same time, Tang San straightened his father's body without hesitation, sitting cross-legged behind Tang Heo. Zuan Gong first circulates in the body for a week, helping his father to refine Hu ginseng of Hu Jiu. Tang San's Zuan Gong is authentic from the Taoist sect, and the healing effect is also very good, especially to deal with this kind of internal injury. Under the nourishment of Zuan Gong and Shengguang Hushan, Tang Heo slowly woke up from the coma. Haven't felt this comfortable in years. Open hazy eyes. Tang Heo frowned slightly. Little San. Pull up. I'm fine. Zuan Gong finally circled Tang Heo's body for a week, and Tang San slowly recovered his inner strength. But his face became extremely solemn. Tang Heo said indifferently, it's fine. I've gotten used to it for so many years. Do you think I, as a titled Douluo, would still be knocked down by this little injury? No, Dad. Tang San turned to Tang Heo. Your injury is extremely serious. If you don't get good care, it's possible at any time. What's the possibility? Tang Heo glared at Tang San. Death. What's so scary about death? Even if I die, I can go to accompany your mother. You don't need to worry about my affairs. What you have to do now is to follow my orders. Are getting stronger quickly. Do you imagine that I couldn't protect my lover like that? Death. Tang San's emotions suddenly became excited. Dad, do you really have no love in this world? Yes, mother is dead, but you still have me in this world. It's your son. If you die, what will I do? Don't you want to see me get married and have children in the future? Don't you want to see your descendants? Tang Heo was stunned for a moment, looking at Tang San. The light in his eyes softened a little. What are you talking about? I can't die. Besides, even if I want to heal, what's the use? I know my own injuries. I've been very lucky to be able to control it to this extent. I can cure it. Tang San looked at his father firmly. Tang Heo smiled, with a bit of sarcasm. Even the titled Douluo of the healing department didn't heal my injury. Can you? Tang San said sternly. The healing skills of a healing spirit master are only a cure for the symptoms, not the root cause. But my spirit power has the ability to cure the root cause. Chapter 267 Tang Hao and -039 S random cloak. Feeling the comfort in his body, Tang Hao frowned. This time, he somewhat believed Tang San's words. Tang San continued, but I can't completely cure you now, because my spirit power is too different from yours. When my spirit power reaches a level of yours, I will be sure to cure you. Tang San wasn't exaggerating. If he allowed his Zuanshan Gong to reach the 9th level, with the authentic internal skills of this sect, he does have the possibility to cure Tang Hao. But what he didn't say was that even if Tang Hao was cured at that time, Tang Hao's soul power would have been greatly diminished due to years of accumulated injuries. It's all in the future. In the future. Let's talk about it later. Speaking, Tang Hao ignored Tang San and turned his eyes to Hu Jiu's side. Now, let's talk about your business, me. What's the matter with me? Hu Jiu looked at Tang Hao suspiciously, not quite understanding what he meant. Your realm is the realm where plants can grow wildly. Tang Hao's eyes flickered, and he became extremely serious. Oh, Uncle Hao is talking about the field of ice and fire. Hu Jiu was stunned, and he said that he didn't have much that could attract Tang Hao's eye. It turned out to be the field, which made sense. Hey, he doesn't want to take me to Yin and then put me under house arrest. With this guy's character, there is nothing he can't do with Yin. It really is the domain. Xiao Jiu, I have something to ask you to help with. Are you willing to help me? Tang Hao was a little awkward. He had never done anything like asking for help. If it wasn't for such a domineering man Yin, even if he starved to death and was beaten to death, he would not lick his face and beg others, and this person is still his junior, which is even more embarrassing. Hey, what is Uncle Hao saying? Please don't ask. If you have something to say, what is the relationship between us? Don't be so polite. Hu Jiu patted his chest and put on a grand look. But in fact, I was very nervous. Okay. Tang Hao gave Hu Jiu a deep look, then turned to Tang San and said, let's go. You come with me. Okay. Tang San was depressed. All he thought about was his father's complicated injury. But Tang Hao didn't care so much. He strode in the other direction with big strides. One step was more than 10 meters away. In just a few breaths, the figure almost disappeared in front of the two of them. Hu Jiu stretched out his hand to put his hand on Tang San's shoulder. His mind moved, and the teleportation soul skill was activated, instantly appearing beside Tang Hao. Tang Hao simply glanced at this and didn't speak, but the speed of his journey suddenly accelerated. Traveling fast all the way. After half a day, Tang Hao brought Hu Jiu and Tang San to an unfamiliar mountain range. This is a rolling hills. From where they were, they couldn't peep into the entire mountain range, but even the outermost mountains had already penetrated into the clouds at their towering heights. Can I go up? Tang Hao looked at the two and asked. No problem. Hu Jiu and Tang San said in unison, follow me. With 3 simple words, Tang Hao had already jumped up and went straight to the mountain wall in front of him to climb. The mountain wall in front of him was extremely steep, approaching 90 degrees, but under Tang Hao's feet, it still seemed to be walking on the ground. Every time his toes tapped on the mountain wall, his body would rise more than 10 meters, and he would quickly head towards the top of the mountain. Hu Jiu and Tang San looked at each other with a smile, then quickly rushed up the mountain wall. Their bodies were at a 90-degree angle, their souls firmly grasped the mountain wall, and they even started to run upright on the mountain wall. Looking more dashing than Tang Hao. Soul power control finally came in handy at this time. Under the effect of soul power, the mountain wall was almost peaceful to them, and the speed was not affected in any way. Sensing the movements of the two people behind him, Tang Hao was slightly surprised. Such fine control of spirit power is not something they should have at their age. Even if he can do it, he is not as natural as them. Next, Tang Hao was like a tireless machine, taking Hu Jiu and Tang San over one mountain after another quickly, and it took nearly half a day to penetrate deep into the mountain range. At this time, there was a faint roaring sound in the air. The air gradually became moist. As it got closer, the roaring sound became more and more like deafening. The air has also become more humid, and it is even a bit cooler than the outside temperature. Finally, Tang Hao stopped again. This is a valley, to be precise. It's a pond. The pool water is crystal clear, quiet and deep, like a huge sapphire point side of the valley. A waterfall with a width of about 20 meters is like a jade belt across the mountain wall with a height of nearly 200 meters. The waterfall poured down, smashed on the water pool, and splashed countless water splashes. Under the sunlight, a colorful rainbow crossed the water pool, which was indescribably dazzling. Just got here. A gust of clear water vapor came to my face. The moist air is refreshing and very comfortable. Surrounded by mountains, one-link pinnacles, sapphire with ripples in front of it, and the magnificent waterfall that connects the sky and the ground. All these beautiful scenery can't help but make people a little stunned. Tang Heo stood there quietly, his eyes always falling on the waterfall like the Milky Way pouring down. For some reason, his always cold and hard expression changed. On his old face, there was an irresistible tenderness. The three of them just stood beside the pool for a long time. It was Hu Jiu who woke up first from the beauty and turned his head to look at Tang Heo subconsciously. Could it be that this is where Yin is located? Little San, haven't you always wanted to see your mother? Now, come with me. Tang Heo looked at Tang San tenderly. Immediately, his face became serious. His soul power began to flourish. The whole person rose into the air and flew away directly in the direction of the waterfall. He pressed his left hand in the air and just used his soul power to borrow power once. He had already arrived at the opposite waterfall reef superior. What? Mom? Tang San's mind trembled. There were too many questions in his heart, but his father had already left, so he hurriedly chased after him. Reaching out his hand, two sturdy blue silver grass flew out, tightly wrapping around the reef above the waterfall. Tang San swayed under his feet. The ghosts and shadows moved and instantly stepped on the blue silver grass, appearing where Tang Heo was. The reef only. Hu Jiu smiled faintly. Her body disappeared instantly and appeared in front of Tang Heo and Tang San. Seeing that to keep up, Tang Heo took action again. With a wave of his left hand, it was 3 meters long, and the huge clear sky hammer with a hammer head like a water tank suddenly released. Look, the hammer is used like this. Tang Heo cast Hu Jiu a blank look. Meteor hammer? Just crooked. Raising the clear sky hammer, Tang Heo soared into the sky. The clear sky hammer in his hand seemed to be hanging on a cloak, and the hammerhead drew a half arc behind him with his backhand and then slammed it out. In an instant, the river and sea flowed backwards and the torrent rolled back. The huge waterfall, silent and like a curtain, rolled up under the influence of huge soul power, and Tang Heo also followed his clear sky hammer into the air. The waterfall had been rolled back by the clear sky hammer for more than half of the distance. Tang Heo's only left hand pressed on the rock wall behind the waterfall, and a rock that seemed to be tightly seamed was actually sunken into it, revealing a portal. Turning back to look at Hu Jiu and Tang San, his figure flashed, and he had already crawled in. Really? Man, he's so fucking amazing. Hu Jiu was dazzled and instantly felt that his proud meteor hammer was no longer fragrant. Chapter 268 Tang Hao and -039, S remorse. Zio Jiu, hurry up. Tang San greeted and instantly jumped onto the rock wall that had just emerged, climbed up the rock, and ran towards the door. Hu Jiu followed Tang San silently, a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Walking into the door, a hole appeared in front of Hu Jiu. Perhaps because of the waterfall outside, the inside of the cave is very humid. The cave is about 3 meters high and 2 meters wide, extending inward. It's dark inside. Tang Hao took out a pale golden gem from his soul tool and illuminated the surroundings. When I walked to the innermost side, everything around it lit up. Looking up, a stone hole appeared at the top of the cave wall, but here, it was a stone room only about 10 square meters. The stone room was empty without any furnishings, but just below the stone hole above, there was a small earthen bag, and on the earthen bag, a slender blue silver grass fluttered in the wind. The blue silver grass looked longer than ordinary grass blades, and the most peculiar thing was the golden fine lines on the grass blades. This, Hu Jiu was shocked. Tang Hao actually let Yin stay in such a place. As we all know, plants need photosynthesis to grow well, especially blue silver grass, but Tang Hao planted Yin in the cave, leaving only a small hole for ventilation. My god, this place is full of stones, and the little bump in the middle was probably moved in from outside by Tang Hao. That is, the blue silver grass didn't choose a place, or maybe Yin would be raised to Death by Tang Heo. Tang Heo doesn't want our yin. Hu Jiu looked at the blue silver grass that was shaking slightly. Poor Ah Yin, why did you fall into the hands of such a man? Little San, come here, kneel down. Tang Heo didn't have any awareness of this. He was facing the blue silver grass, pointed to his side, and sat down like that. Tang San's heart beat violently. He took a few steps forward and knelt down in front of the blue silver grass as his father said, raise your hand. Tang Heo's expression suddenly became surprisingly gentle, and he stroked the blue silver grass blade with pale golden fine lines extremely gently. Ayin, I brought my son to see you. Our son has grown up now. He has inherited your beauty and is better than me. Did you see that? Our son is here. Tang San's heart was shocked, staring blankly at the blue silver grass in front of him that seemed to be swaying slightly, exuding a soft aura. His heart trembled violently. Uncontrollably, the spirit blue silver grass was released quietly and scattered from under him, covering the entire stone room in an instant. Tang San's blue silver domain was quietly opened under this circumstance, and gentle fluctuations of spirit power permeated the silent space. The blue silver grass swayed a little more violently. Infected by the blue silver domain, it seems to be growing quietly. The golden thread on the grass blade seemed to be alive, and in the slight rhythm, golden light and water rippled. Tang Heo was a little stunned, watching the blue silver grass growing at a speed recognizable to the naked eye, and muttered to himself, I should have thought of it earlier. Ah Yin, I'm sorry, I didn't take care of it. Hello. Ah Yin. Tang Heo burst into tears. The first generation of Haoshan Douluo, his face was actually full of tears at this time. One hand trembled and stroked the blade of grass, letting the tears drip into the soil. Maid, I shouldn't have come. Hu Jiu looked at this scene lightly. Tang Heo is an unreliable person. This impression took root in his heart. Tang San shivered and stretched out his hand. Without restraint, he poured all his soul power into the blue silver domain that was constantly being released. The entire stone room was completely turned into a clear blue. Under the nourishment of Tang San's blue silver domain, that blue silver grass began to grow rapidly. Originally, the blade of grass was about 1 foot long, but now it has gradually grown to 2 feet. But it was only 2 feet, and it stopped growing. Zio. Jiu, help me. Seeing that the blue silver grass was not growing, Tang San hurriedly looked at Hu Jiu behind. Hu Jiu's ice and fire domain has a much stronger effect on plant growth than he does. No problem. Hu Jiu readily agreed, strode to Tang San's side, clasped his hands together, and an extremely intense beam of light instantly enveloped the blue silver grass. That beam of light was mixed in red and blue, and was quickly absorbed by the blue silver grass. Immediately, the blue silver grass began to grow wildly, the soil on the ground tumbled, and the dense blue silver grass roots protruded from the small soil bag, twisting frantically, looking for a place to take root. And the height of the blue silver grass kept rising as time went by, and in just half an hour, the height had reached 5 or 6 meters. And it looked like a small tree that was growing vigorously. Hu Jiu was also amazed by the scene in front of him. He did not expect that his own ice and fire domain would be so powerful for the growth of plants. Of course, this was also what he came up with on a whim. Originally, the range of the ice and fire field could cover 500 meters. Although the benefits to the plants were spread out, it was not as shocking as it is now. But after thinking about it, Hu Jiu also understood. After all, he reduced the 500-meter domain range by dozens of times, only covering the blue silver grass of Yin. There is nothing wrong with blue silver grass growing faster. Rich soul power fluctuations appeared on the blue silver grass in just such a short period of time. Yin, who had not even had 10 years of soul power, has become a 1,000-year-old soul beast from the perspective of soul power fluctuations. Though, it can also be said that it has recovered a 1,000-year cultivation base. After all, people used to be a 100,000-year-old soul beast. Crack. A crisp sound made Hu Jiu and Tang San look sideways. Dad, what are you doing? Tang San quickly appeared beside Tang Heo, looking at the red slap print on his father's face in shock. Little San, Dad is sorry for your mom. Tang Heo's voice trembled. He roared, your mother sacrificed to protect our father and son, but I never thought that my Yin did not die. She could be resurrected, but I did not give her the environment she should grow up in, and kept her locked up. in this dark place. Take her as the only sustenance for missing your mother. If I could find out that she is Yin sooner, your mother must have grown up long ago," snapped Tang. Heio's eyes were weeping, and he slapped his face again, showing no mercy. "Dad, don't do this. It's not too late to find out now. I believe that, as long as Xiao Jiu is here, mother will definitely be able to meet us again." Tang San knelt on the ground, pressing his hands firmly against Tang Heio, not letting he continued to slap. "I think what you should consider now is where to put your aunt. After all, this place is no longer suitable." Hu Jiu stared blankly at the father and son, who were deeply in love with each other, two dog things, and completely regarded himself as a tool person. Little San, your mother is not a good person. You actually want me to work for you for free. Chapter 269 Soul Bone. Hearing Hu Jiu's complaints, a magical scene appeared. Yin, the blue silver grass that was cultivated by Hu Jiu in front of him, quietly stretched out two branches and leaves, stretched out to Hu Jiu's forehead, and brushed lightly on his face, as if to comfort him. This strange scene shocked Tang Heio and Tang San. The two of them didn't care about their image, they rolled and crawled to the blue silver grass. Tang Heio was even more exaggerated. The blue silver grass swayed and stretched out two branches, one wrapped around Tang Heio's hand and the other wrapped around Tang San's fingers. An extremely gentle mental wave appeared quietly, much stronger than ordinary blue silver grass. It seemed to convey the most kind thoughts. "Mom." Tang San couldn't hold it any longer, and fell to the ground, crying bitterly. Although he once did not belong to this world, when he really felt the breath of his mother, how could he restrain his inner excitement? "Ayin, my Ayin." Tang Heio was in a state of collapse, holding the blue silver grass wrapped around his arm, and howled with his mouth open. For more than 10 years, Tang Heio did not expect that after so many years, he would still be able to feel Yin's breath again. Feeling the blue silver grass leaf wrapped around his palm, Tang Heio suddenly felt very happy, and his dead heart gradually became alive. In such an atmosphere, Tang Heio and Tang San, father and son, don't know how much time has passed. It was not until Hu Jiu's soul power could no longer maintain the ice and fire domain, and when the red and blue light beams released from him slowly receded, they gradually came to their senses. A strange blue silver grass swayed gently. Tang Heio's eyes had become a little dull at this time, sitting there with a smirk on his face. "Dad." Tang San's voice had become hoarse because of crying, calling out to his father softly. Tang Heio woke up from his sluggishness, looked at the blue silver grass in front of him, then looked at Tang San. "You understand?" Tang San nodded silently, looked up at Hu Jiu, and said pleadingly, "Xiao Jiu, thank you for letting me see mother. I want to ask you not to leave for the time being, and use your domain to help mother grow. I know that my request is very selfish, but I really have no choice. Brother, for so many years, count me begging you once." Tang San looked at Hu Jiu solemnly, silently bent his legs, and was about to kneel. Cold sweat broke out on Hu Jiu's forehead, and hurriedly supported Tang San. The man has gold under his knees, kneeling, licking, kneeling to his parents. "You are my brother, your mother is, my aunt. Don't worry, you can help. I will definitely help. But, Xiao, you won't forget the place in Sunset Forest, right?" "You mean ice and fire eyes?" Tang San's eyes lit up, then dimmed again. "Didn't you take the treasure from that place? It's taken away." Hu Jiu touched his nose, feeling a little embarrassed. He seemed more ruthless than Tang San. Tang San just scraped the immortal grass, but he was making the core of the ice and fire eyes gone. However, although there is no baby, the ice and fire eyes are still there. At least, they will be effective within a few decades. "That's great." Tang San turned his head excitedly, and said to Tang Heio, "Dad, I know there is a place that can make plants grow thousands of times faster. That's where Xiao Jiu's ice and fire domain was obtained. If we transplant my mother to that place, although the effect is not as good as Xiao Jiu's field, the victory will last. Maybe it won't take long for my mother to recover. She once cultivated to a soul beast at the level of 100,000 years. Cultivation should also be different from ordinary plants." Tang Heio grabbed Tang San's shoulder fiercely. "Is what you said true, Tang San nodded firmly. That place, known as one of the world's 3 great treasure pots, is called Ison Fire Liangai. It was the place where poisoned Douluo Gubo used to grow medicinal herbs. Ordinary people can't live there, but for plants it has great benefits. All the plants growing there will mature in a short period of time. Although I have never seen any plant type soul beasts there, with the unique conditions of ice and fire. Perhaps Mother are okay. Tang Heo's eyes were wet, and he looked at the thriving blue silver grass. Ayan, did you hear? My son said that there is a place that will speed up your recovery. You know how much I want to hear it again. Is it your voice? Ayan, let's go. I'll take you there. Tang San excitedly took his father's hand. Dad, what are you waiting for? Let's go now. Yeah, that place seems to belong to Gubo. I remember when he almost killed Xiaozhen back then. Can he let us use Bingho Liangai for nothing? Old man, wait for Tang Heo to talk. Dare to steal Lao Tzu's soul bone and charge a little interest first. Point sure enough, Hu Jiu got what he wanted. Huh, is he Gubo? It would be better if he was a little bit more knowledgeable, but if he wasn't, although Tang Heo didn't say what would happen to him if he didn't know what to do. Hu Jiu had already held a moment of silence for him in advance. Point. After getting along for so long, Hu Jiu finally saw Tang Heo's true face. He was such a tough guy who knew nothing but strength. Point. They can't take care of their sons. They can't take care of their wives. They can only solve problems with their fists, and they are reckless. Just when Tang San anxiously wanted to transplant the blue silver grass, Tang Heo suddenly stopped him. Wait. A while before leaving, I still have something for you. I have waited for so many years, and I don't know how long I will wait, so don't rush it for a while. After all, Tang Heo is old and his mind is calm. He motioned Tang San to sit down on the ground first. He returned his palm and slapped it on the stone wall next to him. Point. With a ding, a black thing fell from the sky and fell into Tang Heo's hands. Tang Heo handed him to Tang San. Open it and take a look. It was a black box in the shape of long strip, about 1 meter 5 long and 1 foot wide. Getting started is very heavy. It actually weighed more than 200 pounds. Flick it with your fingers, making a muffled sound. Point. Because of casting hidden weapons, Tang San had some research on metals. He was surprised to find that this long black box was actually made of lead. Point. Hu Jiu's heart skipped a beat. This must be a spirit bone, right? Is it the spirit bone left off Karayan's sacrifice? The 100,000-year-old spirit bone was stronger than all the spirit bones on his body combined. Point. There was no lock on the box. Tang San put it on his lap and slowly opened it. Point. When he just opened a gap in the box, the whole person's movements froze. Point. The lead box was just a gap. But it surprised Tang San. An unparalleled surging breath rushed out from the gap, instantly making the surrounding space seem to freeze. Point. Even Hu Jiu was also affected by the surging breath, and felt that his body became heavier. Chapter 270 Gentle Ayan. As soon as the box opened a gap, Tang San and Hu Jiu already felt the powerful power of the contents inside. Point. The surging breath almost made them lose their ability to move. Point. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the blue silver grass in front of them seemed to know something. The blue branches and leaves with golden lines suddenly rolled up and swayed in the wind in front of the two of them. The pressure was like encountering a nemesis. The child disappeared. Point. Tang San just let out a long breath, but he still couldn't hide the horror in his eyes. It was only at this time that he looked at the lead box in his hand with lingering fears. Hu Jiu was fine. After all, he was staying by the side, and his level was higher than him. Point. And he was the one who was under more pressure. The aura just now really made him unable to move at all. If it wasn't for the blue silver grass to help them resist this aura in time, he would have to wait for his father to save him. Point. Almost impatiently, he opened the black box. Point. The lead black box was opened, and Tang San couldn't help being stunned when the contents inside appeared in front of Tang San's eyes. In that long lead box, a right leg bone appeared in front of him. In the ranking of the 6 major spirit bones, the right leg bone is undoubtedly the lower ranking. However, this right leg bone looks so different. Point. The whole body was a crystal clear blue gold color, and there seemed to be a little bit of star-like twinkling inside. The most peculiar thing was that it was brought to Tang San It is a feeling of life, as if this right leg bone actually has life point. Although any spirit bone would give people such a feeling, this crystal blue spirit bone was particularly obvious. An extremely cordial aura seemed to be sweeping Tang San's heart. It made his heart tremble constantly. Spirit bones are also divided into 3, 6, and 9 grades. Generally speaking, the more complete the spirit bones in the same position, the greater the energy fluctuations. It proves that the better its quality is, it comes from a higher level soul beast. Just like Hu Jiu. Apart from the 8 spider spears and the tongue, which are attached to the outside, he already has 2 of the 6 spirit bones. One is the head spirit bone, from the pink sacrifice of the spirit beast, and the other is the right leg spirit bone, from the auction house. However, the age of these 2 spirit bones is very low, and their integrity is not high. They can only vaguely identify what part of the spirit bones they are, and none of them are as complete as the one in front of them. The soul bone in front of him was almost perfect, and the thigh bone, calf bone, bone palm, and bone fingers were all clearly visible. Even if you just look at it with your eyes, you can feel its most superb attributes. This kind of life feeling can only be produced by a 10,000-year soul beast. This is what your mother left for you. Tang Heo's eyes also completely fell on the blue right leg bone. The look on his face was very gentle. His heart was filled with indescribable shock. Looking up at his father, Tang San couldn't help tears welling up in his eyes. Of course he knew that after the death of a 100,000-year-old soul beast, soul bones would inevitably be formed. But he thought that the soul bone left by his mother should belong to his father. But it appeared alive in front of him. Your mother has already given me the most precious spirit ring. She left this spirit bone to you. Even if you can't become a talent, I won't absorb it, so I will keep it by my side as a souvenir. Looking at Tang Heo, then at the gently swaying blue silver emperor grass, Tang San's hand tremblingly touched the blue spirit bone. It's no wonder that the energy fluctuations on it are so soft. It is the breath left by the mother who feels its own existence. He had never seen his mother, but the breath of his mother filled Tang San's heart at this moment, and he didn't leave for a long time. This perfect right leg bone almost made Hu Jiu show an envious look on his face. This is a 100,000-year-old soul bone. Hu Jiu's spirit bone could be compared with Tang San's strength. After absorbing it, it would not be an exaggeration to double his strength. Okay, Hu Jiu, don't be envious. I'll find a soul bone for you when I have a chance, even if I pay for taking care of Ayan in the future. Tang Heo's decadent expression may have been seen in the hope of Ayan's resurrection disappeared, replaced by the cheerfulness of youth. Just a change of mood, which just made him look several years younger. The original Tang Heo looked about 50 years old, although he was tall and burly. But people are very sloppy, and they always look sleepy and hazy. Their hair is messy like a bird's nest, and the beard on his face has not been groomed for many days. His eyes were dull and dim, and the smell of alcohol was sky high. If it was someone who didn't know, even if he was Tang San's grandfather, some would believe him. But now it has changed. The gloomy heart has suddenly faded away. Tang Heo's eyes are shining, his hair like a bird's nest, and a sloppy beard looks quite trendy. Thank you, Uncle Heo. Hu Jiu pouted quietly, a soul skill that made him wait for several years before realizing it. If it was a soul bone, there would be a question mark if he could wait in this life. However, he will not be stupid to refuse. In case he will honor it. A branch of blue silver grass silently appeared in front of Hu Jiu and rubbed his forehead comfortingly. Please, Ayin, don't be so gentle. Your man is about to be jealous. Hu Jiu looked at Tang Heo with bright eyes in embarrassment, for fear that he would even eat the jealousy of a junior. Glancing at Hu Jiu lightly, Tang Heo turned his head and said to Tang San, Little San, absorb your mother's spirit bone. I think she must be very happy to witness this scene. Watching her son get her protection. Your mom will be very satisfied. Tang San looked up at his father, hesitant light in his eyes. From his heart, he would rather keep this spirit bone to accompany his father. After all, this is also his father's spiritual sustenance point. But at this moment, the gently swaying blue silver grass suddenly moved. A slender branch gently stretched and wrapped around Tang San's right leg. Tang San was stunned for a moment. Along with his mental fluctuations, he could clearly feel the urging emotion coming from the blue silver emperor grass, that his mother transformed. Point is my mother urging me. Tang Heo smiled slightly and said, look, I'm right. Your mother also hopes that you will become one with it as soon as possible. Let's start. I'm also looking forward to you taking me to the place that can help you after you absorb it. The place where my mother grew up quickly. Little San, you know, since your mother went, it is the first time I'm as happy as I'm today. After listening to his father's words, Tang San no longer hesitated, carefully placed the lead box on the ground, and took out the blue right leg bone from it. Point holding the relic left by his mother in his hands. Tang San's eyes were wet again. From birth to the present, the tears shed in the past 20 years are not as many as today. Point feel the gentle soul power fluctuations released from the blue leg bones. Tang San took a deep breath and put it on his right leg. Point hum a slight buzzing sounded. Tang San only felt his right leg tremble a little, and then a cool breath crept into his leg from all directions. The crystal blue spirit bone disappeared quietly and turned into countless blue gold air currents that filled the surroundings of his right leg. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271 Tang Hao and -039. S-Tool Man is online. Cool, comfortable, and unobstructed. This time the absorption was not even a bit painful, but the whole body was filled with a comfortable feeling. Point this is not right. Didn't Xiao Jiu say that absorbing spirit bones is a little painful? He lied to me. The absorption continued. Tang San felt as if his right leg had stepped into the azure sea, immersed in the gentle energy fluctuations. He felt that the spirit power in his body was being pulled by the special traction from the spirit bones. It fluctuated gently, and every time it fluctuated, the surrounding air would become a little softer. Soul power has not improved significantly, but it has become more pure. Point he clearly saw that the Zuanshan Gong internal force in his body was changing from the original white to a faint blue, and then back to white from blue. Point. If the color of inner strength was the most orthodox white in the past, then now inner strength is a kind of white full of texture. Point it seems to be mixed with mica powder, which is transparent, soft, and full of toughness immediately. Afterwards, the coolness in the right leg bone instantly spread to every part of Tang San's body. Point a violent bone cracking sounded in the cave, and surprisingly, Tang San didn't feel any pain during the whole process. The cool blue airflow directly acts on the meridians of his whole body. Point Tang San was surprised to see that all his meridians turned pale blue. The space in which the internal force flows in the meridians has increased geometrically. Point the creek gradually turned into the Yangtze River, but the meridians did not become thinner at all, but became stronger. A slight shattering sound resounded from the meridians. Still no pain, but Tang San clearly saw that a meridian that had been hindering his progress had suddenly penetrated. Point in an instant, Zuanshan Gong's inner strength rushed through like a turbulent wave, almost frantically revolving in Tang San's body, his inner strength continuously increasing. Every wave made Tang San's body tremble violently. Point gradually, Tang San was lost in the refreshing feeling of his whole body. The inner spiritual power. I have lost awareness of everything around me. The blue air that spreads outside his right leg has completely integrated into his body, and that cool and soft breath is the great maternal love, constantly comforting his child. Point Tang San fell asleep, and this sleep was unprecedentedly peaceful and comfortable, because he slept in his mother's arms. Mother to embrace. It is the warmest in this world, and nothing can replace it. Point he slept very deeply. There is no more back half of the face, just with a sweet smile. Point Tang San slept happily, but Hu Jiu was stunned. Point don't you mean to go to Bingho Liangai immediately? After being away for so long, he missed Xiao Wu and Big Cat. Point. So you fell asleep like this? What am I doing? After thinking about it, Hu Jiu decided to find something to do. After all, Tang San didn't know how long it would take to wake up from this sleep. Those were 100,000-year-old spirit bones, and they had to undergo a digestion process to absorb them. Point. When he was free, he took out the domineering body that Tang Hao threw to him. Hearing the name, he knew that this soul skill was to enhance physical fitness. The fact is also true. The hegemony is indeed to enhance the physical quality and is purer and more domineering than his Jingang is not bad. Uncle. Heyo, have you practiced this tyrannical body? Hu Jiu asked. Tang Heo stroked the branches and leaves of the blue silver grass in front of him and nodded with a smile. Of course, the strengthening effect of the tyrant body on the body is not bad. I think your body is still too weak. The tyrant body is just right for you. Fuck. It's weak. I'm stronger than your son, okay? Hu Jiu secretly complained, then rolled his eyes and said to him, Uncle Heo, I have a soul skill similar to the tyrant body. It is called King Kong who does not break the body. This soul skill has almost been cultivated. Can you give me some pointers? A free tool person, don't need it for nothing. Besides, I helped Aryan grow up, so I have to get some benefits first. Come out and have a look. Tang Heo said lightly. It is good. Hu Jiu agreed. His muscles were tense, and a layer of rich golden light emerged from his body, covering his entire body. At the same time, Hu Jiu's body began to swell, and his body kept growing, and he even grew into a little giant more than 5 meters tall. The muscles on his body were knotted, and the domineering and tyrannical breath spread, and the dust on the ground was swept away by the breath. Fly around. Seeing this, Tang Heo shook his head and slowly spit out 2 words. I'm sorry, this is not to curse, but to point. Hu Jiu was also a smart person, and instantly understood what Tang Heo meant. Originally, he had been training for beatings. If it wasn't for Tang San's request this time, he might still be training for beatings with Xiao Zhu's Yuking in the academy. Seeing Hu Jiu's expectant gaze, Tang Heo smiled lightly, stood up slowly, and walked straight to Hu Jiu. The huge fist hit Hu Jiu at an extremely fast speed. His feet swayed again and again. His body surrounded Hu Jiu, and the dense fist shadows fell like rain hitting bananas. A sound of dang dang dang, like a bell, is full of rhythm. Ah. At this moment, Hu Jiu finally felt what pain penetrated into the bone marrow. If he hadn't watched the progress bar on the hang-up panel keep rising, he might have given up long ago. This was completely different from when Xiao Wu and Zhu's Yuking helped him train. After all, their strength was not strong in the first place, and when they hit Hu Jiu, at most it was a little pain. It's different now. Tang Heo doesn't know what it means to be merciful. No matter how uncomfortable Hu Jiu is, he will come as he will. Every punch seems to be calculated, and it hits the limit of his tolerance. And let him get enough exercise. Shut up, don't disturb my Aryan. Tang Heo reprimanded expressionlessly, but the fist in his hand did not stop, still falling on Hu Jiu at a very fast speed. Now, or never. No pain no gain. Heaven will send a great responsibility to the people, and they must first suffer their minds, work their muscles and bones, and starve their bodies and skin. Grinning his teeth, Hu Jiu kept hypnotizing himself, but what he thought was that if he could slap him at some point, it would be great. If he slapped Haoshan Douluo with his hand in a blink of an eye. Half a day passed. Halfway through, when tired, you solely like to recover, restore physical strength, relieve physical fatigue, and then get up and continue to be beaten. The results are remarkable, and within a day's time, Jingang is not bad, and the body is finally consummated. Hu Jiu's 5 meter tall body instantly swelled to a height of more than 8 meters, and his head almost reached the top of the cave. The golden light on the body is hidden in the flesh and skin, and it is combined with the fleshly body, and the strength and defense are greatly increased in an instant. Haha, Uncle Heo, what's up? My soul skill has broken through. Hu Jiu proudly showed it to Tang Heo, obsessed. What? Hu Jiu was not happy with this, and immediately glared at Tang Heo. Labor and capital have suffered so much. What's wrong with showing off? Chapter 272. Sometimes, it's not that the bigger the appearance, the stronger it is. Tang Heo ignored Hu Jiu, who was glaring at him, and began to explain calmly. Your current body type is strong on the outside and hard on the inside, and you have to be beaten if you want to continue to improve. Hey, Uncle Heo is right. With such a big body, I'm quite imaginary, and it's not real at all. Come on, Uncle Heo, please continue. Hu Jiu's expression changed. He didn't expect Tang Heo to be so powerful. In his eyes, the already consummated King Kong indestructible body just found the next path of improvement point for Hu Jiu. This is the promotion path of King Kong's indestructible body. Tang Heo is right. King Kong, who is now at the perfect level, is not bad. Although his body is huge, reaching a height of more than 8 meters, both his strength and defense have become stronger. But if the huge strength of this body is compressed to a normal person level, concentration is the essence, and the same applies to his current situation. If you continue to cultivate and condense yourself into a normal body shape, I'm afraid that your soul skills will be promoted. Thinking of this, Hu Jiu was extremely excited, almost impatient, and wanted Tang Heo to continue training his body. Don't worry, it's already late. It seems that the junior won't be able to wake up at 1:30. Let's rest first. We'll talk about the practice tomorrow. Tang Heo returned to Yin and said lightly. I was secretly surprised. This kid is really a monster. He is obviously a food type soul master, but his body is stronger than most soul masters. Even beast soul masters of the same realm are not as good as him. During this time, he was exhausted. Thinking of this, Tang Heo shook his head. If it weren't for the injury, how could this kid be stunned? Unfortunately, in the next 2 days, Hu Jiu realized what it means to feel pain and happiness under Tang Heo's training. Hu Jiu lived a life where life was worse than death, and there was no intact part of his body. It is also because he still has holy light soul skills that he can recover. Otherwise, this high intensity training method would have long ago rendered him useless with effort. Of course there will be gains. On the on-hook panel, the progress of King Kong's indestructible body is gratifying. After the full level, the progress bar has moved up for a long time in just 2 days. If you maintain this intensity of training every day, in less than a month, King Kong will be promoted. In addition, there is another surprise waiting for Hu Jiu. That is after King Kong's body is full and his on-hook panel has undergone surprising changes at the moment. When it reached its full level, Jinguangbui was vibrating repeatedly on the hang-up position. This vibration immediately alarmed Hu Jiu. When he opened the on-hook panel, it turned out that not only Jinguangbui was vibrating, but also vibrated with it, and the newly acquired wrought iron hand's 2 soul abilities, one glowing with golden light, the other glowing with grey-black light. The 2 lights attracted each other, and finally each extended a light, and then connected together. At that moment, Hu Jiu clearly felt that the hardness of his hands was constantly improving. In the on-hook panel, the level of the wrought iron hands was also rapidly increasing, and the speed of hanging up was more than 10-fold. In just 2 days, the wrought iron hand has been upgraded from the original level 2 to level 5, surpassing the white tiger sound killing roar, and the shockwave, and chasing the nether soul bell and the hand knife. At this moment, Hu Jiu finally realized that he had discovered a new function of the on-hook panel. That is, spirit skills of the same type can affect each other. King Kong's body is not broken to increase the strength of the body, and the iron hand is to increase the strength of both hands. Both are body forging spirit skills. When King Kong is not bad, these 2 spirit skills have the effect of connecting. Not only does the on-hook progress of the wrought iron hand increase 10-fold, but even King Kong is not bad, and the progress of on-hook is also accelerated. Otherwise, he wouldn't say that it only takes a month to get it promoted. On the 3rd day, Tang San, who had absorbed his spirit bones and fell into a deep sleep, finally woke up. 3 days later, in the coolness of his right leg, Tang San slowly woke up. Opening his eyes, the first thing he saw was Hu Jiu, who was being beaten, and his father, who was beating. At this time, Hu Jiu's body has shrunk from more than 8 meters to more than 5 meters, and the golden light on his body has disappeared. If you observe carefully, you can still see that every time Hu Jiu is attacked by Tang Heo at that time, there would be a layer of invisible golden light flashing away in that place. If it wasn't for Tang San's purple demon eye, who had already cultivated to the 3rd level, the mustard seed realm, he might not have discovered it. Jiu's strength is stronger again. Tang San suddenly thought of this. Of course he wouldn't think that the scene in front of him was a simple father beating Jiu. It's definitely training. Tang San's sober action awakened the 2 who were fighting. Ah, you awake. Tang Heo looked at his son with a smile. All his worries have been resolved, and he doesn't need to act as serious as before, Dad. When Tang San called out these two words, he suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. When I looked down, I found that there was a thin layer of pulp on the surface of my skin, showing a faint gray. Go and clean it up. This time, you have been completely reborn. I have carefully checked your bones and meridians. From a physical point of view, you can definitely rank in the top 3 in the entire Douluo continent. I can't bear the pressure of the twin spirits in the future. Then I just don't understand how Bibi Dong did it. Rest assured and cultivate. After your blue silver emperor reaches the 9th ring, you can boldly add a spirit ring to the clear sky hammer. As long as there is no strange feeling in your body, I think you should be able to continue cultivating without Tang Heo's reminder. He had already felt the changes in his body. The first is a change in the body. Through the inner vision, he can clearly feel that his meridians have grown a lot. If the meridians in the past were small rivers, they are now big rivers. The internal force of Zhu and Xiangang in the body is rushing rapidly in the meridians. Screaming vigorously, not at all afraid that the meridians will be hurt. Tang San's physical strength also increased greatly. He clenched his fists, only feeling that his whole body was full of strength, as if he had endless energy. The whole person seems to have lost weight, as long as the right leg exerts force. He had a feeling of flying away, and the skill given to him by his blue-silver right leg bone is flying. Fly with very little soul power consumption. Only a 100,000-year-old soul bone can produce such a superb soul skill point. When Hu Jiu learned that Tang San possessed the ability to fly, he drooled with envy. The same as the right leg bone and soul bone, he is just a simple wind power, can only make the body will be off the ground. The speed of moving is not as fast as a normal person walking. And the speed of the grandmother and grandfather is comparable. As for Tang San, he just flew. Hu Jiu saw with his own eyes. Tang San jumped up beside him. A jet of air spurted out of his right leg and flew out of the cave in the blink of an eye. That light, heavy, unrestrained and comfortable gesture made Hu Jiu want to beat him on the spot. Happy Dragon Boat Festival everyone! Exclamation mark. Chapter 273 Successful Transplantation. Mom, I feel sorry for you to stay in my wishful treasure bag first, and my son will take you to another treasure land to continue growing. In the cave, Tang San looked at the blue-silver grass in front of him, and said with a guilty face. In the blue-silver grass, 2 branches and leaves appeared silently in front of Tang San, shaking his arm gently, as if comforting. Little San, I'll help you. Seeing that the blue-silver grass had grown so big by himself, Hu Jiu wisely stepped forward to help. A layer of pure white soul power light permeates the hand, and under the control of meticulously controlled soul skills, soul power is as hard as steel. On the ground of the stone cave, a layer of soul power easily penetrated the soil on the small soil bag, wrapping the entire blue-silver grass in it. Drink, Hu Jiu shouted loudly, raised his hand slightly, and lifted the whole blue-silver grass at once. This kind of exquisite soul power control ability surprised Tang Heo next to him. At that moment Hu Jiu just now, even he couldn't do it. Zio. Jiu. Then, Tang San's eyes were quick, and he instantly untied the wishful treasure bag from his waist, and handed it over. Hu Jiu caught it, his mind moved, and the 8-9 meter high blue-silver grass disappeared in the wishful treasure bag in an instant. Tang San solemnly took the Ruai 100 treasure bag from Hu Jiu's hand. Inside, it was pretending to be his mother, so he couldn't help being solemn. Let's go. Tang Heo greeted the two of them, and headed out of the cave and headed for the Sunset Forest. 10 days later, they came to the Sunset Forest, where Douluo was originally, and came to the Eye of Ice and Fire. Feeling the terrifying energy fluctuations in Binghuo Liangai's eyes, and looking at the lush plants around the small lake, Tang Heo knew that this place was right. Tang San said sternly, Dad, this place is not suitable for any other non-plant creatures to live. That's why no spirit beast dares to offend here. I have eaten 2 immortal grasses, and Xiao Jiu has an ice and fire domain. We will not suffer from this influence. But if you stay here for a long time, I'm afraid it will be bad for your health. Tang Heo waved his hand. As long as your mother is good, I don't care. Tang San thought for a while, then said, "That's not good. Our family is finally able to be together, and there is hope for mother to recover. How could something happen to you again?" Tang San's thoughts turned. "Already have a plan." Tang Heo carefully handed out the wishful treasure bag, handed it over to Tang San and exhorted, "Little San, don't force it. It doesn't matter if your mother can't speed up the recovery. There's Hu Jiu here anyway. Hurt her. That's right." The wishful treasure bag that Hu Jiu returned to Tang San had already fallen into Tang Heo's hands, and it contained his wife. Even if it was a son, he was not at ease with such an important thing. Tang San nodded. He even cared more about this than Tang Heo. That's his mother, the only relative in the two worlds, who made him feel the mother's love. How could he not be careful? Closing his eyes, Tang San's mental power slowly released, and after a while, it had already filled the entire ice and fire eyes. He was looking for the most suitable place for the Blue Silver Emperor to grow. The Blue Silver Emperor is a neutral plant, so it must be planted on the shore, where the two springs of ice and fire meet. But Tang San didn't want any errors, so he used spiritual guidance to find the most balanced point. Soon, his mental power locked on the target he was looking for. Tang San squatted down gently, carefully took the Blue Silver Emperor out of the original flower pot, and planted it on that balance point. During the whole process, Tang San carefully felt every change of energy around him, all his spiritual power condensed on this narrow ground. Even if there is anything wrong, he will immediately leave the Blue Silver Emperor from that land. What pleased him was that the Blue Silver Emperor seemed to like the atmosphere here. Through the feeling of spiritual power and the uniqueness of the Blue Silver domain, Tang San soon discovered that the Blue Silver Emperor had begun to take root here. The root system that was originally crowded in the small soil bag swarmed into the ground quickly, and the whole ground kept bulging due to too much movement, and it took a while to calm down. Biting the middle finger of his right hand, Tang San dropped a drop of blood essence onto the blade of the Blue Silver Emperor's grass. He also had the Blue Silver Emperor's bloodline, and in his Blue Silver Emperor's bloodline he also carried the octagonal black ice grass and raging fire. Apricot Jiu is the medicinal power of two immortal herbs. This is undoubtedly the best supplement to the Blue Silver Emperor. Sure enough, the blood dripped, and the Blue Silver Emperor in front of him suddenly exuded a layer of blue and cute brilliance, and the blades of grass grew rapidly, even faster than when he first came into contact with Tang San's Blue Silver domain. The Blue Silver Emperor, which had already been catalyzed by Hu Jiu to 8 or 9 meters, grew rapidly again, and in a short time it surpassed 10 meters. Tang Heo didn't stop his son's movements. Seeing the rapid growth of the Blue Silver Emperor transformed by his wife, he was overjoyed. Just as Tang San was about to squeeze out some more blood to nourish the Blue Silver Emperor, there was a resolute mood swing from the Blue Silver Emperor. Feeling this clear mental fluctuation, Tang San's heart skipped a beat and hurriedly stopped his movements. His mother was blaming him. He knew that if he released blood to nourish the Blue Silver Emperor, not only would his mother not absorb it, but he would strongly reject it. How could a mother not feel sorry for her son? Hu Jiu. Seeing that his mother refused to absorb his blood, Tang San had no choice but to ask Hu Jiu for help. With a smile on her face, Hu Jiu quickly came to the Blue Silver Emperor, and a huge column of red and blue light enveloped the Blue Silver Emperor, allowing her to continue to grow rapidly. However, this time the effect was not as good as the first time, because the current Blue Silver Emperor has grown to more than 10 meters. Hu Jiu's concentrated ice and fire domain has also been diluted to a certain extent. But compared with Tang San's Blue Silver domain, Hu Jiu's domain effect was stronger. It was the difference between heaven and earth. First, because this is the eye of ice and fire, Hu Jiu's ice and fire domain will receive certain blessings here, and secondly, his domain is on hook through the on hook panel. After almost half a year of hanging up, the field of ice and fire has long since changed. An hour later, the Blue Silver Emperor in front of him had become the largest plant in the eyes of ice and fire. The huge root system was entangled together, like the trunk of a tree, and its height had grown to nearly 20 meters at this time. The Blue Silver Emperor's soul power fluctuations were already close to 2,000 years of cultivation. In just a few days, Aryan had recovered to such a level that Tang Heo's excited body trembled. Even with looking at Hu Jiu's eyes with deep gratitude, thinking that all this was brought to him by Hu Jiu, Tang Heo gritted his teeth and made up his mind silently that there should be no problem. This is the most suitable place for mother to grow up. I know that you are not willing to leave mother's side. I thought about it just now, and I have a solution. I'm going to make a medicine for you. After eating this medicinal herb, you should be able to avoid being affected by the breath here. Of course, you will continue to eat the long sea leaves I gave you. Tang San's words interrupted Tang Heo's contemplation. Tang Heo was in a good mood when he saw his wife's rapid growth and smiled. Don't think of your father as being so vulnerable. I'm a rank 95 titled Douluo. Even if I'm injured now, it's not so easy to fall down. Even if it's Douluo in front of me, a titled Douluo like bow is a matter of a hammer. Invisibly, clear sky. Douluo's domineering arrogance was released again. Don't, Dad, I'll deal with Douluo bow's side. You don't need to worry about it. Besides, your injuries are so serious, you can't use force. Tang San was startled and hurriedly pleaded, haha, you started to control Laoti's edu again. Tang Heo scolded with a smile. Chapter 274 A turn. Being scolded by Tang Heo, Tang San was in a good mood instead. Without saying more, he walked to the hot yanquin and took out his own pot and tools for refining medicine pills and immediately began to put it into the process of refining medicine. All kinds of medicinal herbs can be found in his wishful treasure bag. Of course, his so-called refining medicine is more just to show his father. As night fell, Tang San continued to refine medicine. Hu Jiu, on the other hand, seized the time to let Tang Heo practice so that he could not break the body. Tang San's mental power has been quietly observing his father, feeling that his father is playing Hu Jiu with great interest, and he took out a dagger from his 24 bridges in the bright moonlit night without making a sound. He was indeed refining medicine, but it was not a medicine that would help Tang Heo not be affected by the two eyes of ice and fire, but a medicine that strengthened his roots and cultivated vitality. What he had been waiting for was the opportunity in front of him. If you want the father to accompany the mother here and adapt to the climate here, then a special medicine is needed. This medicine is the blood of the person who has eaten two extreme fairy grasses. The medicinal effects of the two great immortal herbs had already been initially fused in Tang San's body, and Tang San's blood was undoubtedly the best medicinal guide. Gently cut his wrist veins. He knew that, even if the sound on his side was slightly wrong, his father would find something wrong. In order to prevent the bloody aura from spreading out, he even quietly opened up the blue-silver domain to cover it up. The blood dripped into the medicine refining cauldron like a meandering snake. Tang San was afraid that the effect of the medicine would not be enough, so the blood flowed until he was already dizzy before stopping. Quickly press the wound. Just like what Tang Heo said, if it's only about the body now, Tang San can definitely be ranked in the top 3 on the mainland. In just a short while, the wound has completely healed and scabbed. Tang San knew that there wouldn't be even scars left until tomorrow morning. Although Tang Heo didn't notice this scene, Hu Jiu did. But when he saw Tang San's actions, he didn't say anything. Anyway, Tang San was young and strong, only bleeding a little, and he recovered after a while. What to say? With the best medicinal guide, the next refining becomes a matter of course. When Tang Heo woke up from training the next morning, Tang San had already held a dark red medicinal pill that, after eating it, you don't have to worry about the environmental impact here. You can always accompany your mother. Tang Heo nodded slightly, looking at his son's pale face. He didn't say anything, just swallowed the pill in one gulp. Father, is it someone from Spirit Hall who killed my mother? After holding it for several days, Tang San finally couldn't help but ask. Tang San's words made Tang Heo's face gloomy. He did not directly answer Tang San's question, but said to him, Little San, with your current strength, you are not qualified to know the truth of the matter. Work hard. Cultivation. When you grow up, I will tell you everything. Then. When did I grow up? Tang San couldn't wait to know the truth about his mother's murder. Level 70. When you reach level 70, I'll tell you who our enemy is. Tang Heo said lightly. Okay. Hearing his father's request, Tang San agreed without thinking. It may be difficult for others to cultivate to level 70, but for him, this requirement is not difficult. Because he has Hu Jiu's cultivation of Hu Ginseng point. After absorbing 100,000 years of Blue Silver's right leg bone, his strength has risen to rank 57. Finally surpassing Damu Bei in rank, and with Hu Jiu's cultivation of Hu Ginseng, he can be promoted to rank in less than a year. Level 70. Meeting his father's requirements at this time, Hu Jiu next to him didn't know that he had unknowingly become Tang San's support point, but even if he knew about it, he wouldn't feel that it was a loss. After all, Tang San bought him spirit bones with all the money he used to buy hidden weapons from the 7 treasure glazed tile school not long ago, and now Tang Heo is treating him very well every day. Endure the injury and accompany him to cultivate the Vajra body point. It could be said that he and Tang San's family were getting more and more confused. It didn't matter who helped who more point the next day. Hu Jiu rarely found Tang Heo immediately to start training. After he used the ice and fire domain to help the blue silver emperor grow, he came to Tang Heo and said to him, "Uncle Heo, I think it's time for me to go back to the academy. This time, the little 3 and I have been out for a while. Now that we are back, I want to go back and report their safety. If there is no other important matter, I will come back to accompany you." Fuck you. Who wants your boy to accompany you? With Ian here, I think you guys are annoying here. Besides, I still don't know your thoughts. Don't I just want me to help you cultivate your soul skills, right? Why does it sound so good? Tang Heo waved his hand and rolled his eyes. He has seen the face of this kid. When he was a child, he licked his face and went to his home to learn to strike iron. With a few jars of rice wine, he learned the method of hammering with a cloak. He is very clever. Hey, do you want Xiaozhen to go back too? Hu Jiu smiled, turned to Tang San and asked, "Let's go together. I also want to see if they can recognize me when they see me now." Tang San frowned and said with a playful expression, "Haha, I definitely won't recognize you. You've changed a lot now." Speaking of Tang San's current appearance, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, even he couldn't believe it. Good guy, just a martial spirit evolved. It was just like plastic surgery. From an ordinary young man to a big man, handsome is almost as good as him. Point leaving Bing Huo Liangayan under the leadership of Hu Jiu. In just half an hour, the two of them teleported outside the gate of Xiandao City Point when she returned to Shrek Academy and came to the dedicated training ground for the Shrek 9 monsters. Hu Jiu saw Xiao Wu, who was sitting on the horizontal bar in a board state with her legs dangling. Point there is also the big cat Zhu Zuking, who is training hard. Point as for the others, Hu Jiu selectively ignored them. Point the moment Hu Jiu and Tang San stepped into the training ground, Xiao Wu, who saw them, immediately discovered them. "Xiao Jiu, I miss you so much." With a cheer, Xiao Wu quickly jumped off the horizontal bar and ran towards him at an extremely fast speed. Point the moment he was close to Hu Jiu, he jumped up even more and threw himself on Hu Jiu, with his legs crossed around his waist and his head buried on Hu Jiu's neck. "I miss you too." Hu Jiu gently stroked Xiao Wu's back and said softly. Point in the training ground, Zhu Zuking also stopped cultivating and looked at Hu Jiu with maddened eyes, his eyes full of sorrow. Point Hu Jiu thought about it and waved to her gently. Point in an instant, Zhu Zuking's eyes burst into scorching light, his body turned into a black light, and he ran towards him desperately. Yo. Yo yo. Behind him were the howls of Damu Bei and Mahanjan. Tang San looked at them blankly. He was so big. Could no one see him? Chapter 275. Tang San proves himself. The two beauty was in his arms, and this feeling almost turned Hu Jiu over. He could clearly feel that the moment Zhu Zuking threw himself into his arms, Xiao Wu's body stiffened slightly and then softened again. "Xiao Jiu, why did it take you so long to come back? If you don't come back, we'll be cut off." Xiao Wu raised her head and complained to Hu Jiu, "There's a bit of a delay this time. Don't worry, if you go anywhere in the future, I'll definitely take you there." Hu Jiu comforted Xiao Wu's scorpion braid. "Okay, that's what you said. Take me with you, wherever you go in the future." "Well, I promise." After hearing Hu Jiu's assurance, Xiao Wu was relieved. "By the way, you guys are out of food. You shouldn't Before I left, didn't I leave a lot for you? Hu Jiu thought of what she said just now. After dealing with Xiao Wu, the clingy little goblin, of course, during this period of time, we have been practicing hard. Xiao Wu raised her chin proudly, her face proud point after all. They were still provoked by Hu Jiu and Tang San this time, because their strength was too low. They didn't even have the qualifications to go out on an adventure with them. This made the rest of the Shrek 9 devils feel very unhappy. They are genius monsters, who are not arrogant and arrogant masters. Just because their strength is too low, they can't help, even if they want to help. This kind of mood almost drives them crazy. During the time that Hu Jiu and Tang San were away, they worked hard one by one, practicing desperately, trying to improve their physical fitness, in order to eat one more carrot of Hu Jiu's cultivation, and then speed up their cultivation. The results are also very significant. After a month, the strength of one by one has risen very quickly. Hu Jiu, Wuhan Hushan, level 69 food soul. Emperor Xiao Wu, Martial Soul Soft Bone Rabbit, level 59 Agility Attack Spirit King. Tang San, Martial Soul Blue Silver Grass, level 57 Control System Soul King. Damu Bei, Martial Soul White Tiger, 57th level Storm Type Soul King. Zhu Zhu King, a Spirit Cat of the Netherworld, a 50 level Agility Attack Type Soul Sect. Mahanjan, Martial Spirit Phoenix, 49th level Assault Type Battle Spirit Sect. Oscar, Martial Soul Sausage, level 48 Food Type Auxiliary Soul Sect. Ning Rangrong, Martial Spirit 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda, 48th level Auxiliary Spirit Sect. Menyaran, Martial Soul Dragon Staff, 47th level Assault Type Battle Soul Sect. Haha, it seems that our Shrek's strength has ushered in a big explosion. Hu Jiu said happily, after learning the level of everyone. Haha, boss day, my strength has finally caught up with you. Let's compare to see who goes further. Tang San eagerly looked at Damu Bei. He surpassed Damu Bei, but he didn't expect that. Although his level increased very quickly, Damu Bei was not idle, and his strength increased quite quickly. Who are you? Do I know you? Who asked you to call me boss day? Damu Bei twitched the corner of his mouth. A light flashed in his evil eyes, raised his head arrogantly, and squinted at Tang San. That's right, brother Jiu. Who is this person? Why is he so handsome? He's almost catching up with me. Mahanjan hugged his big belly and looked at him with disdain. Tang San, how can Fatty be so thick-skinned? Not to mention that his face has changed now. Even before the change, he was much more handsome than Fatty. This Fatty is too ignorant. Hey, why do you have my third brother's 24 bridges on the bright moonlit night? Say, what did you do to the third brother? Ning Rangrang snorted, standing in front of Tang San, pointing to his nose. Rangrang, don't make trouble, I'm Tang San. Tang San looked at everyone helplessly. These guys couldn't hide the smiles on their mouths. It was definitely intentional. No, you're not Tang San. My third brother can't be this handsome. Ning Rangrang denied it. There are also clothes. These clothes are also from the third brother. In Hu Jiu's arms, Zhu Zhu King lightly repaired the knife. Be honest, who the hell are you? Otherwise don't blame me for being rude. Damu Bei looked at Tang San fiercely, as if he was about to go to work if he disagreed. Yes, be honest. Everyone shouted in unison. Tang San spread his hands to Hu Jiu depressedly, begging him for help. Now, he is not surrounded by one person. Damu Bei, Mahanjan, Ning Rangrong, Oscar, Meng Yiran, all surrounded by him. No matter how powerful he is, he can't beat so many people. Hu Jiu pretended not to see Tang San's cry for help, and a pair of eyes fell on Xiao Wu and Zhu Zhu King. Especially the big cat Zhu Zhu King. His eyes were fiery, and he licked his flaming red lips from time to time, which almost caught his fire point. If it weren't for the crowd here, maybe he would have imposed punishment on the spot. Then, tell me, how can I prove that I'm Tang San? Tang San was also helpless, proving himself, which made him go to reason. HMPH, my third brother's spirit is blue silver grass. Ning Rangrang said. Tang San stretched out his hand, and a greatly changed blue silver emperor appeared in front of everyone. My blue silver grass has now evolved. It is now called the blue silver emperor. In the past, Tang San's blue silver grass, because the spirit rings he obtained were hunted from various spirit beasts, which also made his blue silver grass contaminated with some characteristics of spirit beasts. For example, the first spirit ring skill, entanglement, was obtained from the mandala snake point. After absorbing the slowness of the mandala snake at first, his blue silver grass changed, and the grass blades had strange patterns on them, just like the stripes on the mandala snake. And then he absorbed the spirit rings of ghost vines, poisonous spiders, crypt demon spiders and other spirit beasts. The blue silver grass had already become dark and terrifying point, but now that it has become the blue silver emperor, it is different. In the current blue silver emperor, the blades of grass have become as bright and transparent as sapphire. In the center of that crystal blue, there is a golden texture. From the roots of each blue silver grass to the leaves it looks more noble, and people know that it is not a common product at a glance. Ah, you blue silver grass? Oscar approached the blue silver emperor, observed it carefully, then looked at Tang San suspiciously. Even if the spirit has evolved, the change is too great, so you just have to fight with me, don't you? Tang San blankly glanced at the people surrounding him, and finally settled on Damu Bei. It's not us, it's me and you. Damu Bei clenched his fists, his eyes filled with fighting intent, and his spirit power instantly increased. Okay, then, it seems that it's impossible not to fight. Tang San is also eager to try. This time his strength has improved so much, he also wants to try. What level of his own strength is? The crowd dispersed instantly, leaving the sight to Damu Bei and Tang San. This time, Boss Day may be at a disadvantage. The current junior is very strong. Hu Jiu looked at the field with interest and began to evaluate in a low voice. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.